You're watching Suck Professor. Hello, everybody. It's me, Hank. I'm joined by...
James.
James! The first of James, also. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Suck Professor is your source for premium quality entertainment analysis and confusion. James, give them your pitch. Tell them why they should subscribe.
It's tax write-off.
It's a tax write-off. Yeah.
Exactly.
You could write off all your parents' orgy funds. Mm-hmm. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We're going to do a Last of Us 2 review and discussion. There will be huge spoilers. It's one of those games you can't really talk about it without telling spoilers. Right? There's been some issues. I mean, James has prepared an incredible amount of notes, which makes you really, actually, I feel terrible. Oh my God, you got a numbered list?
Oh, yeah.
What are you, a fucking psycho?
This game affected me.
Yeah, I'll say. Yeah, Jesus. But I feel like I'm giving you homework assignments.
Oh, no, I had to get this out. This is my therapy.
Okay, good. Well, then take your head off my lap. That's not how therapy works.
It's part of it.
Yeah. What if you went to your therapist and were like...
You're Joel, I'm Ellie. This is how it has to work.
Who are those?
Oh, we're
I'm joking. I'm teasing. We did a full Last of Us 1 playthrough on this channel. There's a link in the description if anybody wants to go relive history. I play, and James sits there agonizing torture while I make terrible choices. But we're both lifelong gamers, so our thumbs and our fingers work. So it worked out. It's fun. We didn't do a Last of Us 2 playthrough, unfortunately, because it's a lot of fucking work, right?
Just actually playing it felt like a job.
Oh, really?
At certain points.
At certain points. All right. Well, good. Cool. And I'm going to get this one uploaded sooner than the previous podcast, which took about a month for me to get it up there. So that's how it goes. Anyway, hope everybody's safe and handling the quarantine okay, but taking care of yourself and each other and taking breaks and making sure your mental health is okay too. That's very important. By that I mean, don't sit so close to the TV, okay? Or you'll grow hair on your palms. James, how you doing into quarantine? Handling it?
Oh, yeah. It's really no different for me. This is still normal life as always. I don't really care for the sun or outdoors. I don't really care for people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all pretty good. I like Halloween a lot, so the whole mask thing doesn't bother me.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty much paradise, I'd say. Aside from the death and destruction and stuff, it's like, people saying, "Oh, I want to go back to the beach." I don't like the beach, so suck it up.
Yeah, the beach was terrible before it was covered in disease-ridden corpses.
Exactly. All the things that people miss doing are the things that I never would choose to do.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective, woohoo!
You're staying inside and avoiding people is more or less like my MO, too.
Been training for this my whole life.
Exactly. You've been ready, too. I've been animating a bunch on my other show. It's a politics podcast. There's a link in the description. It's Lefty Politics, in case you're worried about having your... politics, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, but give it a listen.
Of Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
co-host.
Ben Shapiro. I would actually have a conversation with him. I think it'd be interesting. Yeah. But anyway, I'll talk you into your own self-worth. Give it a try. That's all we got. Doing a lot of stuff. So life is good, sort of, not really, but it's fine. Just okay. Let's get to the goddamn show. People are waiting for me. This is the part where the people stop listening because they go, "Who the fuck is this guy? Why is he doing this?" James. So spoilers, guys. Everybody, spoilers are gonna come in now. Where do you want to start this? Do we want to talk about background information about the first one, maybe?
I don't know. I don't think anything that you can say about the second game can really resonate to a person who is not familiar with the story elements and what went down in the first game.
All right, so let me summarize the first game.
Please do.
So this girl has an uncle named Joel, and they go on and...
No.
No? I played it.
They're not related.
They get... They go on an adventure in the apocalypse, and there's a guitar. They play guitar a lot.
Ellie transforms into guitar. She's a transformer.
Oh, right.
She's an android that was built by Dr. Light.
He said, what's Dr. Light?
Mega Man.
Oh, I was going to say Mega Man. Fuck, man, you made me... I had a chance to find it look cool.
Let's say his Japanese name.
No, because if I do that, I'll just sound like a racist guy.
No, not in Japanese. What is he called in Japan?
Oh, in Japan, they call him Dr. Joel.
Rockman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dr. Light is Rockman?
No, Mega Man is Rockman.
Oh, I see. Oh, I bet the word mega means something different.
Who knows?
I took Japanese for a week. in college until my dad talked me out of it because my family's against education. No, he was right.
Did you tell him that? Did you sing that song? I'm turning Japanese. I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so.
Yes, I did.
That's the best way to tell
That's the song I want my dad to walk me down the aisle to.
No.
No, but it's the language is syllable based. So mega would be MEGA, and that would be kind of a. It was a long time ago. Okay. So I would love to learn it, but anyway. All right. God.
So from the first game, you should really start at the very beginning. Joel and his daughter.
He has a daughter?
Oh yeah, this is the catalyst that sets everything really into motion emotionally for Joel.
Okay, so Joel's daughter turns into a jelly-headed monster that squirts out gas clouds and goes.
Not quite. She doesn't make it that far.
Oh, she dies.
The game opens. You're playing as Sarah, Joel's daughter, in the world before it goes to crap, before the pandemic hits and before everyone dissolves into chaos.
Is that why they have that windowsill? Is that the windowsill of her bedroom or something?
No, that's a different part of the game, but that's that's a good parallel to draw.
Okay, so I don't remember anything. I have one of these brains.
Yeah, so I'll start it off and then you'll take it. So it starts off in the very beginning of the game. You're playing as Sarah. She appears to be maybe like 11, 12, 13-year-old young girl. She's walking around an empty house at night, and then there's something is going down in the world outside. The power's out. She can't find her father, Joel. There's sirens. There's explosions in the distance. Something seems to be seriously wrong with the world, but she doesn't yet know what it is.
Okay.
The night prior to this, it was Joel's birthday, and she gave her father a wristwatch as a gift.
Wow.
And you got to see the dynamic between him and his daughter, that they cared about each other quite a bit. They were kind of comical. They joked with each other. He says, "Hey, the stupid thing doesn't work." And she grabs and goes, "Oh, no." And he's, "Oh, I got you.
Time for Daddy to get a new wristwatch and a new daughter."
Exactly. And then he goes, "How in the world did you pay for this?" And she leans and goes, I sell drugs. I'm a hardcore drug dealer." And that was pretty funny.
But that's actually a real thing?
Yeah, the little girl says that. And it shows
I assassinate people.
Right. It shows that they have the same sense of humor, that they love each other, that they are inseparable, that they are kind of cut from the same cloth.
Okay. Yeah, a good father-daughter bond.
Right, and you immediately, in that small period of time, you bond with Joel and this little girl, even though you haven't known them but for 2 minutes.
Oh, sure.
It's effective because it's relatable.
Good storytelling.
And then the part that rips your heart out is that you get into a car with Tommy, who's Joel's brother.
Oh, I remember the car drive now.
Yeah, and you're basically trying to drive to get out of the city, and you're seeing it's pitch black at night. You see houses on fire, people panicking, people begging for help to be let in, and Joel keeps driving because he knows he has to protect his brother and his daughter.
Shit's going down, right?
Right. He can't help everyone. He has to pay attention to what's important to him. Eventually, he has to get out and start running. They get to a checkpoint. There's a guard out there, and in the confusion of what's going on, the guard lets a round go off. Joel is holding his daughter in his arms. The round hits her. She dies in his arms.
Oh, right. Now it is coming back to me now.
Yeah, and he is completely emotionally devastated. And then it cuts forward into the future, and you see a much more grizzled, much more tortured, older Joel.
Yeah.
And you know why he's like that, because he's been pushing people away his entire life, because he knows what it's like to have loved and lost. And he will not open himself to anyone else again.
I felt that way when my favorite Chinese buffet closed.
Yes.
Damn it.
For me, it was Rallies in the corner.
Rallies.
They replaced it with a freaking coffee bean and tea leaf.
Yeah.
Who would choose coffee over a succulent burger?
Not me. I would take a burger smoothie.
Me
instead
too.
Of a single leaf. All right. So
we're
devastating opening. He's got his grief-stricken man in confronting. This is still the first game,
right? And the thing
and his daughter's dead, so he's hardened and he's closed off.
And it drives the point home that it's quite a while after those events happen, because they're well into the apocalypse, really.
Survivors, yeah.
And when his daughter got shot and he fell and everything, it smashed his wristwatch that he was wearing that she gave to him.
Oh.
And when you first see him afterwards, you see him still wearing the broken watch.
Yeah.
Which just, again, is a knife in the heart.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What if she gave him a snap bracelet? He could have just snapped it right back on.
Yeah.
Should have thought that through, daughter. All right, so
and then she would say, "Pearl Jam, don't call me daughter."
Oh wow, yeah, good one. I like it. The first one, then we're not going to summarize the entire first.
Well, all we really need to do is say that Joel is part of a group of survivors.
Okay.
and they come across this young girl who's about the same age as his daughter was, Sarah, when she died.
Yeah.
And it turns out she's immune to this plague. And they believe that if they get her across the country to this group of survivors called the Fireflies, that they can use her blood to synthesize a cure to save the rest of humanity.
Right.
Joel initially does not want to take on this task for the reasons we mentioned before, that he's cold and hardened and he's pulled away. He cannot bring himself to love or care for another person, let alone someone who so directly emulates the personality and age and appearance of his old daughter.
Right. It's a little too close.
Right, but eventually he takes the task on, and you go on this journey with these two characters across the country, and you go from them being distant and cold to each other to watching them organically open up and learn to trust and learn to love again. And by the time the end comes along, she is basically his daughter.
Well, you skipped over the giraffe farm. Don't they farm giraffes for a little while? They herd them across the great savannas of Ohio.
No, I mean, there was a scene that was emotionally traumatic for Ellie.
Yeah.
That something happened and she wouldn't speak for a very long period of time until you get to the scene where Joel tells her, come over here, and she doesn't know why.
Right.
It's one way or the other. Either that or she runs ahead and then tells you to come out there. But whatever it is, there's this big reveal where you go through this building and then you come out onto this balcony, and there's just like, well, they escaped from a zoo. You're not in a zoo.
Okay, all right.
And it just shows that the world being reclaimed, that these giraffes are just roaming around casually, these majestic giant creatures leaning in and looking at them and stuff. It was just like an awe-inspiring moment.
It was a beautiful scene, and the giraffes are well done, and that's why I remember it. If you ever get up close to a giraffe, they will lick your girlfriend's face without asking. And I say, go for it. Go for it, honey. I consent. They have long blue tongues, and they are very photogenic, those creatures. But no, in the context of an apocalypse, especially a dystopian game, that scene with the giraffe is very... it really stands out. Because you haven't seen animals really. Maybe I don't know. Do they have animals in the world? Squirrels and deer.
There's a deer all over the place. Yeah, constantly.
Don't they hunt? You hunt deers, right? With arrows.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to eat. It's post-apocalypse.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, I'm all for killing and eating animals. So I'm just,
but it does not. You never encounter through either game any animal that's been infected with this fungal virus or infection that turns you into this like raving mushroom monster.
Yeah.
So that's not a thing. Animals are immune.
Oh, okay, good. I don't think I could handle having to put down a squirrel.
Yeah.
Did they ever explain what the fungal was? Was there research? Did I miss that?
They never explicitly go into it. No.
Okay.
But
I mean, that's not the focus of the character. It's just they're not trying to figure it out, but they're trying to get her to a place where she can contribute to them.
Right. Yeah. So at the very end of the game, you finally get to the hospital. You get to where the Fireflies are. You find them. You're elated. Joel is happy. Ellie is happy. Their journey was not for naught.
His brother Tommy is alive. Like is a character, right?
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah.
So they get to the hospital. They find the Fireflies, and they start putting Ellie into a pre-op situation. And they're basically saying, okay, we're going to use your blood, so forth. We're going to try and make a vaccine. But during this kind of discussion, it's revealed to Joel, and I can't recall quite if they like subdue him or tie him up or beat him up or something, but they say to Joel, it's like, okay, she's already in surgery, she's, it's just too late, but we have to kill her. She will not survive the surgery, and it's not a given deal that she's going to be able to create a vaccine.
Maybe he finds an audio log, like a recording on the corner of a desk that has a slight glowing tint to it, and it goes, audio log, I'm going to chop up the girl. I don't like it. She looks just like my wife, but I'm going to cut her head open. The code to the safe in the other room is 141714.
Yes. So the game...
Love Mark.
Yes. Which, oddly enough, is the name of the doctor that he shoots.
Really?
I believe it's Mark, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of spoiled a little bit there, but he gets... What happens is that...
Joel decides he can't handle them killing Ellie.
Right, because he has finally regained what he's lost, and he knows the pain of losing that, and he refuses to go through that again. So it would seem that Joel...
wear two watches.
Right, so Joel, like, can you imagine his watches all the way up his arm, and goes, not again!
Another dead niece, god damn it!
So he finds out that they're going to kill her, because they believe it's in the greater good. They don't ask for permission. They don't tell Ellie, you're going to die. They don't tell Joel, hey, we have to kill her. They make that decision. They take that choice away from them.
I see.
And force it going forward because they believe the moral choice is even if there is a 10% chance they can make a vaccine, the life of one child is worth the salvation of humanity.
Which I disagree with.
Well, Joel disagreed with that,
Yeah.
and he came in, tried to stop the surgery, and did so inevitably using bullets and violence and what have
You
you.
didn't just have a reasonable conversation?
No,
At the
he
end of
did
the
not.
game, you just get this like a mini, what do they call that? Where you have to press square.
Quick time event?
Quick time event where you're like,
No.
convince him of the morality of it. Refer to Socrates.
Right. So Joel shoots up the whole place, kills all the nurses and the soldiers and doctors, everyone who tries to stop him from getting away.
Yeah.
Ellie, of course, is under anesthesia. She's not aware of this.
Right.
But the game ends with her in the car, laying in the back seat, and she wakes up and she goes, "Hey, what happened? What went on?" And Joel lies to her. He says, "Turns out it was all for nothing. They've seen a dozen people just like you, and they couldn't do nothing to make a cure. They told me it wasn't for,
Was she... Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, what?
You're quoting... I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. What were you saying?
Well, did she know she was going to get... She didn't know she was going to get killed, right?
No, she didn't.
But she knew she was determined to get to the hospital because she wanted to help by offering whatever she needed to.
Right.
So she was committed to the follow-through.
Right. She may have been willing to die, but she wasn't given the choice.
Right.
So Joel spins this lie to her, saying that it was no point. They didn't. You couldn't help them. It wasn't what they needed. And you can see in her face at the end of the game that she's concerned. She doesn't believe it, but she doesn't say anything. And then boom, cut to credits.
Okay. And,
so you're left with this moral dilemma. It's like, who was right? Who was wrong? And the game doesn't really address it. The game leaves it up to you to decide what the right and wrong is.
Yeah. There are those ethical quandaries that you might suggest have gray area and nuance and be a great foundation for a discussion in which we might learn something about the human condition.
And then in playing through the second game, I took a bunch of bullet point notes going. Okay. So I think I have about 9 or 10 of them.
All right. So, but first game was very well received. The Naughty Dog made the Nathan Fillion game or whatever, Nathan Drake, and Uncharted. High production quality, excellent acting, amazing music, really beautiful sets.
Yeah, no one does a better job
action
in the art department, the acting department, the motion capture department, the music department, the Naughty Dog. They are, I hate to say top dog, but they are.
Well, they're not so naughty. They're top.
Yeah.
Although being a top could be naughty.
No.
Yeah. This one girl, man, she was into that top and bottom stuff, and I was like, all right, I'll try. This is fucking confusing as shit. So anyway, they're gone. So okay, but you love the first game. Strong emotional,
I don't think there's. I would say if you were to make a pie chart, the slice of the chart of people that were not hit hard emotionally by the first game would be so thin it would be imperceptible.
Okay.
That game resonated.
That's the first time I've ever been thin.
Yes. But that particular game was so successful because the relationship that they forged between these two characters was so relatable that I don't have a daughter, but I have a father, and I know what it is to care for people
and what he looks like wearing makeup and playing guitar.
Yes.
No, I know, but you have family you love and care about that.
Right. So you could easily see yourself in that situation and have to be faced with the decision of what would I do given those circumstances.
Sure.
So it just hits so hard and so powerfully on every single note.
Yeah. Are you glad that they didn't give you a choice at the end? Like, would the game have been a little detractive?
It's funny that you mentioned that because that was my only problem with that whole game.
Okay.
How it comes down to right and wrong, and yet it robs you of the choice.
Right. You don't have the agency to make that decision.
Because I remember when I played through that game and it got to that point, the first thing I tried to do was put my controller down so I didn't have to do anything in terms of shooting the doctor.
Okay.
And then I tried to shoot over his shoulder to see if I could scare him into running out of the room so I could take Ellie and leave. I didn't want to hurt anyone.
Maybe you could shoot out a little tiny piece of her brain, just a little bit, and then that would land in the doctor's chest pocket, and then he could take it to the lab.
And I think when you played through it, it was like...
Don't spoil that moment. We did have a fun ending for the game.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody decides to go check it out.
Let's just say hesitation is not your strong suit.
Okay, I just said don't spoil it.
That's not spoiling.
That's not spoiling.
You ran right into the hospital.
We got to the hospital.
You were supposed to find a better parking spot. But you were like, I'm going to park over here.
I got into a fight with the parking guy because he he said something about he called me a cuck and said I don't deserve. No, anyway. All right. So first game had a big impact, but it was like 6 or 7 years ago. So the second game came out with a lot of anticipation. Very loyal players and gamers are really excited to get their hands on round 2.
Right. It's been 7 years since we played this game. If you played it when it first came out.
Yeah. So, Game of Thrones did not fill the hole.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in terms of this too.
They're connected. Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, this is going to be like a 4-hour show.
Yeah. So the first thing I would probably want to mention is exactly what you're talking about. How 7 years have passed. Everyone was absolutely in love with the characters of Joel and Ellie. And they've been dying to find out where this story goes. So before the game even comes out, Naughty Dog, led by the Neil Druckmann now, who wrote this thing, he was like a small writer on the first one. He didn't have full creative control, but now he has the full reins in this game. And he decides with Naughty Dog to release a trailer. And in this trailer, you see Ellie, an older Ellie, who is traveling around, trying to be stealth and whatnot, hiding around a corner, and suddenly a hand comes across her mouth, as if to silence her, as if, I'm a friend, don't yell, I'm here to help you. The camera then cuts to Joel.
Oh, so it's obviously a friendly...
Yes.
Like, aggressive, but friendly.
Right, so the camera cuts to Joel, and he says something to the effect of, you didn't think I was going to let you do this on your own, did you?
Do it in a Joel voice.
If I could do a Joel voice, I would never do any other voice. Joel has a great voice.
You didn't think I'd let you do this alone, did you, baby?
Yeah.
Yeehaw!
You got any French fried taters? Yeah, he's not quite Sling Blade.
No.
I think Troy Baker is the name of the guy who voices Joel. Absolutely fantastic. Great voice actor.
Way to go, Troy Baker.
So the problem here is that we see this scene in the trailer. And that scene tells all of us, what it telegraphs to us is Ellie is out on a mission. She's trying to do something, we don't know what. She runs off without telling Joel. Joel catches up to her and says, your battle is my battle. I'm with you. We're doing this together.
Yeah.
That's what that says.
Okay.
And here's where the spoilers start.
Sure.
And I'll just drop this right off the bat. In the first 2 hours of the game, they brutally murder Joel. Joel never says that line in that context, in that scene.
Right.
That line is in the game, but the person who puts their hand over her mouth and then speaks that exact line is a completely different character.
So it's actually, that line is spoken, but it's by a different character. So,
I don't want to be quoted on that. I believe so. I have to go back and check, but I think that it's the same exact line.
Do you recall a scene where, maybe not the same, but there is a line where a friend of hers grabbed her by the mouth to keep her quiet? It
is an intentional misdirection to sell games.
And it's not like they took a scene where Joel says that to someone else, because trailers do that all the time.
I don't believe so. No.
Like the trailer editors will like pick a couple of different moments that are not really related, and they'll weave it together, like, where the car smashes through a watermelon and then some guy goes, oh, my pants, but it turns out the pants is about a guy like losing his pants.
Right. They intentionally misled.
Yeah, they animated a false scene.
Yes.
They didn't even do the usual mislead. They went way further by creating a whole different...
Yeah, they knew they already had our trust because of how well they hit home Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
They knew that as players, all we cared about was seeing how the story of Joel and Ellie unfolded, and they knew that they had created a game that is the complete opposite of what we wanted.
Yeah.
And they even said in interviews before this game came out that we know that there are going to be players who love the first game that will hate this game. They knew it. They knew what they were doing, and they still intentionally misled with a fabricated trailer to try and make sure that even if we are in that population of players who will not like the game, we still at least give them our $60.
Right. Now, like, as someone... I don't like when companies are trying to please. Meaning, like, when you're telling a story... I'll use the word art very generally, but when you're offering a creative or an emotional experience, which is what an art offering is, what entertainment is, music, whatever else, and you cultivate or you customize it in order to not offend anybody or in order to avoid upsetting people, I think that usually means you're compromising somehow. So the notion of saying they will hate it doesn't necessarily indicate that that they know they've done some wrong stuff, which it turns out it seems like it was. But But it could also be interpreted as like we are standing firm on our principle of telling a good story, and you might not like the story we're going to tell you, but we are going to do what we did the first time by telling a compelling narrative true to our creative instincts and our art. No, but that's not what it was, though. Right?
Yeah, they didn't do that at all.
I'm saying there's a nuance to that statement that is worth mentioning.
Right. When I say what players who love the first game wanted, I don't mean that literally. What I mean is that I think anyone who played the first game knew going into the second game that as much as we did not want to see this happen, that Joel was going to die. Thing is,
why did you assume that?
Because in order to effectively tell a story where a character grows and develops and becomes independent, you can't have that father figure or that powerful person helping you, holding your hand as you go through a journey.
Sure.
You have to become detached from that person in order to move forward.
Same way ducklings eventually become fully grown ducks. They murder their parents.
Yes.
Yeah, or become Darth Maul. Who's the bad guy? The guy with the what's his face? Adam Driver. Puts on a mask. Star Wars.
He's
Darth Vader. The other
he's
guy.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying like eventually turn to an evil bastard who has to wear a mask.
Well,
or you have to get killed. So
you're
that
not far off when it comes to Ellie, but we'll get there.
Oh man. Oh god.
So what was I?
I think there's a fly in here. Do you see it? Sorry, I totally derailed the podcast. Sorry, everybody. I'm bad at this. About how in order to be
right. So
in order for her to achieve,
we knew that Joel had to die.
Got it.
But the thing and I don't want to get into any sort of like political conversations of why people trashed on the game in the day or two that came out, because those are completely illegitimate. Most of them are, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But the people who did not like the game for a reason that is not fair and that borders on discriminatory reasons, I don't want to give them a voice or give them any sort of credence in this, so I'm only going to focus on what legitimate problems exist in the game.
I like that. I'm with you.
So the issue here is that Joel did die, but the way that they did it was a complete disservice to the character that they had created prior.
Okay.
The first problem is that Joel in the first game is a completely cautious long-term survivor.
Yeah.
He knows how to behave around people. He knows how to stealth. He knows what kind of information to give people and what not to give people in order to stay alive and protect the people that are with him.
Don't drink the yellow snow.
Yes.
Yeah, one of those guys.
In the simplest terms possible, Joel is an effective survivor.
Yeah.
So we were
all Joel. We were.
Yes. So what we run into is a situation where in this game, you start playing as a different character very early in the game, and you don't really know who you are or what you're doing, but you are an incredibly buff woman, which nothing wrong with that.
Of course.
A bit unrealistic in a post-apocalyptic world where food is scarce and you don't really have time to spend your time pumping iron and stuff, but whatever.
You might.
Well, she's traveling. I mean, she's traveling from long distances around. It's not like you carry a gym with you. Is what I mean.
Gravity's free everywhere, my friend. By the way, have you ever lugged around a mushroom fungus head body? Those shit's heavy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know. I agree. Like,
and even in the early trailers when they depicted this character, she was much thinner, and then they released the game, and suddenly it's like
she's
the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. She's got that like professional wrestler body.
Yeah. They actually used a real body of a real woman to do the motion capture and do the body modeling, not motion capture, but to do the body scanning. And this woman is like a world champion power lifter or something. So to say that kind of physique is normal or real is a little bit of a stretch considering who it came from.
Right.
This is not a normal body.
Fair enough. But neither are the fungus monsters chasing them all over the place.
But that's part of the story.
I know.
I mean, that's the suspension of disbelief covers that portion. But it's like, holy cow, this person is massive.
Yeah, this might be not the mean of the typical body you might find, but it also is a plausible thing. You know, I think people in that time, obviously, yes, nutrition and exercise, but they're not all addicted to Pokemon like we are. Yeah. They're not out at the local church trying to break in at midnight because that's when the vampires go to sleep, so you can catch some fucking Charizards. Okay, well, they're not like that.
That was the whole reason they went to the hospital in the first game.
There's a Charizard in there.
They were playing Pokemon Go. Yeah,
it's a golden one. Oh my god, I missed. Oh no, I'm gonna have to go get my parents' credit card. but they would have had time. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't seem so.
They make a very subtle attempt to explain it. Yeah, and we'll get there eventually. But it doesn't really matter. It's a little jarring at first, and I have to say that because just the choices that you make and how your characters appear does matter.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you take Ellie, she's a much smaller, thinner. Mm-hmm. She's still strong, don't get me wrong.
Sure,
but she's got arms like I do, which, if you can't see my arms now, which, how would you?
I can't, I'm trying to see them.
Imagine...
You have translucent skin.
Imagine bright white toothpicks.
Bright white toothpicks.
Those are my arms. So if you were playing through a game with a character like that, you would have to design the game in such a way that you can't have her pushing giant bookshelves over to reveal passages to climb through things.
Right.
You can't have her fist fighting and melee fighting people without a weapon. Yeah. Things like that. So maybe that's why they did what they did with Abby, who is the character's name.
Yeah.
Because they design games in the same way that they did when you were in control of Joel, who's a big strapping dude, who has considerably more strength than Ellie does. So that could be part of the dynamic, or maybe they just wanted to create a character that was stronger in other ways. Who knows?
Yeah, it's fine.
But that's besides the point. But you start off
they
playing.
They moved the slider bar all the way to the right.
Yeah, they sneezed and moved it all the way. Oh shoot! And it's too late. Fine. It's already gone to print. What are we gonna do? But anyway, you play as this character, and you get into a considerable amount of trouble. You have clickers, or that's what they call, like the fungal head things, and runners and things. They are bearing down on you, and you are just barely saved by these two guys who are traveling together, who are kind of monitoring the area. It just so happens to be Joel and Tommy.
Right. Now, can I jump in? Because I remember watching you open the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, plot-wise. Mm-hmm. Joel and Ellie arrive at some big camp that's like a city, kind of, or like a walled compound. Where they have children and, like, shops and stores.
That's like near the end of the game.
No, that's the beginning. That's the opening scene. Then they leave.
The walled compound?
Yeah, they find some friends. They end up showing up at the place. Isn't that the opening of the game? And then you become Abby. And then it's about how Abby's tribe is looking.
Oh, if you're talking about Jackson, I mean that's a smaller settlement.
Yeah, but
that's where they start off. The big walled place is where Abby's from.
Oh, I didn't even see any of that. Okay, yeah, that's you're thinking of it. Okay, different walled. I'm talking about that opening, but it's got electricity and lights. And from afar,
Jackson.
If you saw it from afar, you would think it's like a town of about 500 people or something. Like it's a sizable place, and in the context of an apocalyptic era,
right?
Because most people are going to be sleeping in tents and waiting for raccoon monsters to come chew their noses and their genitals off, and not in that order. Ugh, gross! You couldn't have gotten my nose first. Jesus, now I got to smell my own balls as you bite my face off. Mm-hmm. Boy, first world problems. Am I right, James?
Yep. Sure.
Okay, so. Good. I'm glad we figured out that confusion because I didn't want to feel like I was trying to tell you what your business was. So anyway, now Abby encounters, but she's not part of their group, but she encounters Tommy and Joel.
Right. All you know from playing as Abby is that she is with a group of...
I saw the fly.
Yeah, she's with a group of other people from another settlement, and that they are intentionally scouting around Jackson in order to find one man. Mm-hmm. And you don't know at this point in time who the man is or why they want to find him, but you just know that they're hunting this one person.
Yeah.
So as Abby, you get saved by Joel and Tommy, and they escort you back to the base camp where your people are.
Gotcha.
Now, knowing Joel and knowing that he's a survivor, and knowing Tommy and knowing that he's also a survivor, and that they're very akin to the protection of the people back in Jackson and to themselves and those they care about, and Joel, having known what he did back at the hospital and knowing that he's a marked man for the decision that he had to make in order to save Ellie, you would think would be extra cautious. So what happens here is that you have this compound, this building that is filled with like a dozen people, all of which are armed to the teeth. Joel and Tommy hitch their horses, walk straight into the middle of these people, casually says, "Hey guys, how you doing? This here's Tommy, my name's Joel." And these people only know that they're looking for a man named Joel whose brother is Tommy.
Okay, well, I think they might have some strong evidence.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, yeah.
And they, knowing all of those things, that Joel would never in a million years do that.
Yeah, you'd go, but I'm Tommy. Not Joel, definitely not Joel.
But because...
And then look around real fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Neil Druckmann needed his story to work.
Right.
He needed for Abby to get her vengeance early in the game, and then Ellie comes in trying to save them from behind and gets hit in the head and held to the floor and made to watch as Joel head is caved in by Abby using a golf club.
Do they? So I didn't watch this part of the playthrough. Do they grab Joel and like, or does Joel put up a fight and then they finally like get him or something?
They as soon as he says his name is Joel, they basically pull out a shotgun, blast his leg half the way off.
Oh, right.
He falls to the ground, screaming and writhing around, and then she caves his head in with a golf club. But she makes
Abby uses a golf club?
Yes.
Wow.
But he's alive by the time Ellie gets there because she says something like, no, you don't get to make this quick. Yeah. So she tortures him.
Oh my God. Wait, so he's got like a golf club sized wound in his head and he's still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can happen.
And this is all in the first 2 hours of the game.
Did he like get up and run around and like knock the ceiling fans and stuff around with the handle sticking out of his head?
No, his leg is gone. Yeah. He can't get up.
Okay. All right. That's unfortunate. Not how I would have done it. Oh, but all right. So very traumatizing to have Joel suddenly killed in such a ignominious manner.
But not only is that a disservice to him, but he would never have revealed that information.
Right.
That is so far removed from who Joel is.
My name's Ellie. I'm not Joel.
Right. It's complete. The real Joel would have given a fake name.
Yeah.
The real Joel would not have walked into a room full of fully armed people. The real Tommy would not have said, oh yeah, our base, we got a city about a mile down or an hour's down that way. Yeah. He would not do that. He would not compromise his safety and the safety of his people in order to tell the truth to a bunch of strangers who have unknown motives.
Right.
It's just completely insulting.
Wow, that must be frustrating to have seen it. So had you already been picking up on clues that this might not be down the road or that they might have been missing the mark? Or was this like the first indication?
This was the first indication to me.
Okay, because the production quality was up there, right? Like the graphics, the snow, when you walk through, you leave footsteps and stuff, and you shoot the fungus faces in the face, and the fungus goes everywhere. It was always good. So the sound and kind of the control scheme. I mean, they didn't necessarily change it a ton because why improve over, why improve over Jenna's House Chicken? Can't get any better than that.
Here's the thing: the game is virtually unmatched when it comes to graphics and sound design, voice acting, motion capture, all that kind of stuff. Those people deserve every award that exists for what they've done with this game.
Yeah.
It is just, there are so many times where I just stopped and just stared at the scenery that was around me and listened to the sound and the music and just wanted to, I could do that for like hours. Sure. It was just amazing.
Did she say, before she hit him in the head, did she go, 4?
No. Oh. She says it's time for me to hit a Joel in 1.
Did you have that canned up? That's brilliant.
It's a common joke people have been making.
Oh, people have been making it.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that.
Oh, man. That's good. I like that. Did she replace the divot? Did she like put a little patch of grassy dirt on his face after she
may as well.
I caddied for 4 years, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So
one time my brother walked into the bathroom. There was like this bathroom with a little hot dog stand because we were both caddies, and there was an old man in there changing in his pants, and he had a diaper. Mm-hmm. And my brother came up and he's like, Mr. fucking Face, he has a diaper.
What, you discussed it with your brother?
No, the guy just didn't. Well, yeah.
So you're a bunch of chatty caddies?
We were chatty caddies. Yeah. So we both held him down and changed his diaper. And we kissed his each toe. We said, mwah, mwah, my baby boy, he's so cute. Mwah. And then he peed in our face. And then, actually, I was a caddy, so I know about golf.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is the worst show on YouTube. I'm sorry, everybody.
So what happens next is Joel is dead. Yeah. His head is caved in, and Ellie was pushed to the ground with her face facing him, watching it happen. So she's traumatized, and that's burned into her memory.
Yeah.
But even before this event happened, back in Jackson, we learned that Ellie's life has not turned out the way that she's wanted it to. She's not the happy-go-lucky, sarcastic, funny, joking, carefree spirit that she was in the first game. She's older now, but she's got this constant chip on her shoulder. She's angry.
So she's what, now about 18?
Something like that, which I guess is common around that age, but she's been through a lot. I get that. And
yeah, I'd say so.
She's been through quite a lot. But it's still, it doesn't feel like this is the Ellie that we knew before.
Right.
I mean, throughout the game, some examples are, when you play as Ellie, you go around and you find these little collectible playing cards. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because there's little Easter eggs hidden in the game that gives you something to look for to encourage you to explore these intricately detailed environments.
Which would be like Dennis Eckersley rookie card.
Right. So it's sort of like an Uncharted where they hid treasures all over the place.
Yeah.
It's this little reward to the players for going around and looking in places they might otherwise look over.
Mark McGuire, MVP year.
So the other problem is that, but when you're walking around as Ellie through the game, you do see things in the environments that the real Ellie would nerd out over.
Yeah.
You see like an arcade machine that's built on a character that she worshipped in the first game, this cartoon-like character that she talks to Joel about from her comic books.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it.
So you walk up to it and you expect like a little subtle dialogue of her saying something, anything like, oh man, if I were 10 years younger, I'd be all over this sucker. It's like, oh yeah, cool. Wasn't the old world cool? Just something to tell me that this is still the Ellie that we know.
Maybe that was a deliberate choice to illustrate how much this difficult life, this dystopian world has beaten out of her what innocence she did have. Her joy and that you got to experience in the first game, that could go away. I mean, we all get our shit kicked out of us, especially if we get our first fucking job. Have to go work for some asshole.
The counter argument to that, though, is that...
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying...
Right, but if that's the case, if she really has gotten old enough to the point where she doesn't care about these trivial, childish things, then why will she shimmy across a pipe or crawl through a ceiling or fight a bunch of clickers in a dilapidated garage just to get these little trading cards?
Oh, so there's another thing that they have her looking for.
No, we're talking about the trader cards.
Yeah, no.
But because it's like... If that's not still a part of her personality, then why is she picking these up?
Oh, I see. So yes, like collecting them now is weird if it lacks the kind of like because it's a rare case, and maybe it speaks to the quality of the first game, is that a lot of like in Grand Theft Auto 5 or just pick whatever game, you have to find stuff that's hidden, pigeons, or I don't even remember, whatever. But there's like those collectibles. But if you can apply an emotionally grounded, especially if it's grounded in like those childhood wounds, especially if it's like that pre-terrible world, the before times. I mean, that's a strong narrative. I don't want to say cudgel, but a strong narrative thread that most games lack when it comes to collectibles. And now they just kind of made it just as arbitrary as any other collectibles. Because most games do that.
Right.
These kinds of games, at least.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that respect.
I dig it.
So what happens is, at this point in time, when Joel is brutally murdered super early in the game, you take this character who is already not the character we remember, and again, Joel is not the character we remember because Joel would never do something as dumb as he did to get himself killed, and you turn what was once an intricate, complex, multi-layered, emotionally motivated journey, and you boil it down into what's essentially a revenge plot. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is. Okay. It's Ellie saying, I need to get vengeance for what they did to Joel.
I see.
And when Ellie sees Joel get killed, they kick her in the face, she's knocked out, and the next thing you know, she's waking up, and she's still alive. And I haven't touched on this portion yet, but she now has a girlfriend named Dina, who was traveling with her from Jackson. And she comes and wakes Ellie up. So you know that this group of people killed Joel, but they didn't kill anyone else.
Why didn't they keep Ellie? Did they just not want to have a hostage? They left her? They
they left her. Okay. They left everyone else. Right. And that's not explained until later on.
Okay. And
Ellie doesn't know why, because she was knocked out.
So Dina? Is that right?
Dina.
Dina finds her?
So here's the problem with Dina, is that they market a game to us that is advertised to be a journey with Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Characters that we love. And then they murder Joel, and we have to watch this whole funeral, not a funeral, but Ellie at the gravesite, her going back into his house, finding the box with his broken watch in it, and finding all these little subtle nods to the first game in his bedroom that just destroy you. Because, like, Ellie was really big into space. Yeah. Joel didn't know anything about space. You look at his bedside dresser or his night table, and he's got a book like Space for Dummies or something like that. He was trying to read up to connect with her.
It's just a book on how to type.
Yes.
Well, I don't know much about space, but there's an M button, there's an N button, there's a B button, there's a little arrow one.
But it's the game then changes from being Joel and Ellie to being Ellie and Dina. And they throw this Dina character in as though it's an acceptable replacement for Joel. And the problem with Dina is not that she's a bad character. It's just that she is woefully uninteresting.
Right.
There's nothing about her, at least to me as a guy, as being relatable, which is fine. It does not mean that she's bad because she's a woman. But it's just the dynamic between the two of them seems forced at certain points to me.
Yeah.
There's no background journey that we went through in the first game that establishes her and gives us a pre-formed opinion of her.
My favorite movie in the 80s was starring John Ritter. And I was so in love with the movie. And all the characters were just so well developed and connected. And then this little redheaded kid comes in and fucking ruins the movie. He causes all sorts of chaos. He throws a cat at the grandpa's face, and then the grandpa falls down the stairs.
Maybe he was just a problem child.
Fucking hated that movie. When that little redheaded kid showed up, I was like, this movie is ruined.
Well, that movie was about him, though. This game was not about Dina.
It was called Problem Ritter.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I'm not sure why I decided to go with that one.
But this is kind of where the story starts making its grievous transgressions.
General Grievous.
Yes.
So Dina and I get it. Like you haven't really. They probably try some kind of emotion. Like they did the snowball fight sort of tutorial mode. Right. And like you're supposed to like, look, they're girlfriends. They love each other. That's their. I mean, they're in. That you're supposed to care, but you can only. It's not the same as the way you were made to care for Joel from the first game.
And this was not the journey that I shelled over $60 for.
Yeah.
And what the trailer led me to believe was going to happen.
Yeah.
So now I'm stuck riding around in a horse with Ellie, who's in a perpetually sour mood, and Dina on the back, who is not really adding much to the story at all, yet the story is desperately trying to force me into caring for Dina when I don't hate her, I just don't care for her at all.
Right. Did you care for the giraffe that was also on the back of the horse? The third seat?
Well, when they got to the hospital, they were able to do a neck shortening procedure, and that's the horse now.
The horse.
Yeah.
Riding a giraffe would be intimidating.
Yeah, can you imagine how long the ropes from the stirrup?
Yeah, I know. It'd be like riding Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, and then when your horse finds or your giraffe finds another giraffe, and they start doing those neck fights.
Oh man, have you seen the giraffe neck fights? Oh wow, there's one documentary where they're in slow motion, and the one it looks like. I mean, they do a great job editing it, but it's like the one that looks like he's down and out, but he like dodges it and then comes up with a big whack. And they have the same number of bones in their neck as you and I do. Yeah, pretty interesting.
I actually found a note that I wrote that kind of fits right into here.
James's graduate thesis here.
So is this going to sound stupid because when you write something, you don't write it as though you're going to speak it? So this is going to sound rehearsed or something?
It's to trigger your
literally reading this from my iPad. Okay. So here's what I wrote at the time that it happened. I wrote, the players are expected to care about Dina and Abby, we'll get into Abby later, in the same way that we did for Joel. This is something that must be earned. Throwing Dina into the mix as a Joel replacement early on does not work. And the revelation that Dina is pregnant has the opposite effect. It does not make her endearing, it reveals that she's been dishonest with Ellie. Oh. We find out in this cheap ploy to try and make us care about Dina that suddenly she's not feeling so well and she throws up and has to lay down, and then she comes clean with Ellie saying, oh, you know what, I'm pregnant.
And it's not yours. Ellie was like, is it mine?
Did you see that? She does say that.
No. What, is she joking around?
Yeah, she does have some Well, actually, no, Ellie doesn't. Dina says that. Ellie gets really quiet, and she goes, don't worry, it's not yours.
Yeah. So they didn't have, I mean, maybe one of them didn't know they were committed. Sometimes people are like, I didn't know we were formal.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. There is another character in the story, one of my favorite characters named Jessie. Yeah. And she broke up with Jesse, and they admit that. They kind of established that early on.
Jesse's a man?
Yes. Okay. And his mom has got it going on. I had to do it.
8, 6, 7, 5, 3. Yeah. Is that song?
No, this is Jesse. Yeah. Maybe I don't know.
Something Sharona? I don't know.
Yeah. My Corona.
Yeah, whatever.
Sharona
virus.
Wow, yeah, it could be. But the whole thing is that she didn't cheat on Ellie. Yeah. This happened before she and Ellie became a token couple.
Fair. Yeah, these are 18, 19-year-olds. Yeah. Banging. I wasn't banging at that age. I wish I was. Yeah. I really wanted to. I would have been able to bang 18 and 19-year-olds.
Is that word even right? Like a token? Maybe that's not the right word, because a token couple means that they're like advertised as the game as being together, and all the screenshots show them there. But maybe that's not the right word.
Yeah, token can be.
I don't mean it in a bad way. So maybe that's not the right word I'm looking for. But they are the quintessential couple in the beginning of the game.
Right. And
Dina knew that she was feeling unwell for a long period of time. Women have a way of knowing when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
Before they start spewing vomit everywhere.
I think I'm pregnant.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm holding a baby that just came out of me.
Right. But she doesn't choose to tell Ellie until she has no other choice because she's sick and has to lay down.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That, to me, just doesn't ring super great.
Well, apocalypse pregnancies probably have slightly different intensities than the ones we have these days. I thought I was pregnant for a while. It turned out to just be diarrhea.
Yeah. Oh,
which
and
is roughly the same.
Yeah. And there's something else that you will probably find to be
cynical. What I just said, by the way.
No,
okay. So they didn't have like a
And there was a scene. I only mention this because it's funny in retrospect. I did not pick up on this when I was originally playing the game.
Yeah.
But they get into Dina and Ellie break into this area that turns out to be a weed farm where one of their friends who has since passed away hidden grew weed in private, and he had a porno stash sitting next to him. And knowing the different games that Naughty Dog has created over time, what was their very first game? The one that put them on the map?
Nathan Drake?
Oh no, way before this.
Mega Man?
No.
Super Mario?
Who was the mascot for the first PlayStation?
The Noid?
He's think orange, blue jeans, spins around.
Oompa Loompas?
Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, no way I was gonna get that one. Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So when you're looking through the porno tapes, either Dina or Ellie picks one up and reads the title of it, and the title is a veiled reference.
Is it Smash Bandicoot?
Were they Smash Brandy's Cooch?
Smash Brandy's Cooch. Nice. That's they went with it. They did a little brainstorming. I think Smash Pandacoot would have been better because it's grosser.
Yeah, it's bestiality.
Yeah. It's the apocalypse. We're free. That's so weird. Smash. Okay, so did they take the pornos? Pornos will be very valuable in the apocalypse.
They did
Think about it. We all have porno on our digital in our
they
browser
did not
histories.
Do that.
We're all digital porno people nowadays. So you got to go old school. You got to go looking around in the woods for some library masturbator's stash by the railroad tracks. Those days are gone. But in the future, that'll be boom times for paper porno.
Yeah. To speed things along, though, we've got Dina's kind of out of the picture right now because she's laying in this an old timey theater which they broke into so they could get out of the rain and so forth.
Yeah.
And then Ellie.
Why else go to the theater? Honestly, it's the only good reason.
Yeah. And then Ellie. Yeah, it didn't work out for Lincoln. And then Ellie goes
at least
off.
I'm not wet.
Ellie goes off on her journey to find Abby and to kill Abby because that's all she cares about. She has a one-dimensional plan in mind: vengeance for Joel.
Yeah.
Even though she and Joel had a big blow-up, which you find out during flashbacks, she was not on speaking terms with Joel because she had just screamed at him the night prior to get out of her life and leave her alone.
Oh. Can you say what that was about?
Yeah, you're not supposed to know until the very end, but basically what happens is, in the very beginning of the game, Ellie goes into a bar, and an older woman there forces the bartender to apologize to Ellie. And you don't know why. And he says, I was drinking. I don't know what I was saying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please take these sandwiches as a token of my apology.
Oh, yeah,
and
I remember.
All that stuff.
I think I saw that one, yeah.
And she takes the sandwiches and then hands them to someone else and says, I don't want any bigot sandwiches. And I was like, geez, Ellie, why are you so ticked off?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the game, you see what happens. They're at this social gathering. So people are dancing and things. And then Ellie ends up dancing with Dina, and then Dina kisses her, she kisses her back, and the man who had later apologized walked up and broke them apart and said, "This is a family event. There are children watching. We don't need any of you DYKES." Or is that how you spell it? I don't know. I've never actually written
that's how you spell it.
Nor have I ever said it, but they said we don't need that here. And then before Ellie could even stand up for herself, Joel jumped in between them and said, "How dare you!" and stood up for her and protected her like she was still a small child.
Oh. So she was mad that he didn't give her the chance to stand up for herself.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Which, does that make him a bad person? God, no.
No.
But it is mean, and this is after other revelations where she finally forces him into telling her what happened at the hospital, because she already knows. She went back there herself and found the evidence and all the little notes that people left behind, which is how video games are. But once he admits it...
Dear Margaret, the children are scared. By the way, Ellie, the main character, she was killed. Joel didn't tell her about it. The code to the safe is 161416. Love, Bill.
Sound like a 1920s...
Hello there.
Y'all notice all the dead bodies. They sure got a wallop.
Be careful there. You're going to get a paper cut reading all that newspaper porno. You're going to... Yeah. They've got a new invention. It's called animation. Look at that racist mouse dance on the steamboat. All right, go ahead. So, I don't know if Disney was racist. I assume everything was racist.
Well, Walt Disney was.
Yeah,
I heard
sure, exactly.
Anti-Semitic and stuff, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, not whatever to that, but he's like, that's besides the point of what we're talking about now.
Boy.
I'm not a fan of Walt Disney.
Awkward white guys trying their best to talk about racism. Sorry. We're not for it.
I don't know. Walt Disney can screw himself up.
Yeah, it's fine. They're all, all corporations are evil fucking immoral entities that have no right to exist. I mean, they shouldn't be allowed to live forever.
Right. So a large part of what I guess I'll finish going through the story in the order that it's presented, and then I'll tell you why I hate it.
All right.
So she goes off on her own, and
Ellie goes off to get Abby, you mean?
Yeah, she's going off, and at some point, like that scene that you mentioned when the hand goes over her mouth, and it turns out there's really Jesse, who's the character, who's the father of the baby.
Yeah, but a friend of theirs.
Yeah. So they go off traveling, going through trials and tribulations until they find out some lead information that this Abby character is holed up in an aquarium. And I don't mean she's inside a glass box. She's inside like one of these like big buildings, like sort of like a SeaWorld type.
City aquarium, a municipal aquarium.
Yeah, something like that.
Which is a great setting for a cool video game with great graphics.
Yeah.
To have cool aquarium displays and stuff. Yeah, I think it's a great choice.
So you eventually finally get to a point where you start catching up with Abby's friends, the ones that were with her in the room when she brutally killed Joel.
Does her group have a name? Are they like
They're the WLF.
Oh, really? The Wrestling League of Fancy Lads?
By short, they're called Wolves.
Okay.
The Wolf. But they stand for like Liberation Frontier, like Westchester Liberation Frontier. It's something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was.
The Wolf comes out of the acronym.
Yes.
All right.
So there are... The entirety of the story from this point forward is done in an attempt to force your hand into making decisions that you don't want to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote something here that would better probably explain.
All right, let's go to the thesis.
Okay, so before I get into like the details, what I wrote here is this. What it boils down to is that this game is highly manipulative in ways that are neither creative nor fair. The order in which the story is told and the actions that we are forced to commit as players create a narrative... that we're forced to commit as players creates a narrative that Ellie and Joel are wrong and bad, and that Abby is correct and justified. The first game left the moral ambiguity in to allow players to muse over the subtle undertones of right and wrong. This game is about nothing more than revenge and the concept of right and wrong, only it decides for us what falls into each category, forces our hand in every situation, and then attempts to make us feel remorseful for the awful things we've done. The best summation I've heard from other players is put simply. The game is about right and wrong, written by a man who thinks he's always right.
Well written. Thank you. Mm-hmm. You should write for gaming channels or gaming websites and stuff. You have a good tone. I like it.
So that's the problem.
Wait, so we're only at the point in the story, though, where Ellie has learned where Abby is. Has she actually gotten to her yet?
Well, almost.
Okay.
So we're at the point where she's running into Abby's friends.
I see.
So what I want to mention here is that every creative choice that they make when you first start playing as Ellie, just setting out on her plot for revenge, is done intentionally to demonize Ellie, to demonize Joel, and to make Abby appear to be the hero.
Okay, so
they're crapping all over the characters we love, and I'll explain to you how this happens. So Ellie is so blind in her quest for vengeance that she comes across, she sneaks up on this one of these women as part of Abby's group named Mel, I think.
All right.
And Mel is just sitting back, minding her own business, and Ellie gets the drop on her and like puts a knife to her throat and says, give me information, where is Abby? And I might be misconstruing some little subtle things here, but it's something I don't think that Mel wants to give up her friend, because why would a person do that to someone else they care about?
Yeah.
So they get into a scuffle, and Ellie ends up sticking her knife right through Mel's throat. Okay. And as Mel falls down dead, No, but as she falls down dead, her vest pops open, revealing that she was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
And Ellie sees that and just like falls to her knees and throws up. Because Ellie didn't want to kill a pregnant woman.
No.
Nobody
wants
to
do that. That's not cool. That's like killing 1.1 people. Right. I don't know. But yeah, I would feel worse stabbing a pregnant woman under the chin, up through the head.
I think it's like straight through the
through the side of the neck.
In and out of the neck.
I always think that one under the jaw, like past your tongue.
Where they open their mouth, you can see the blade in their mouth.
Yeah. There was this bull running of the bulls moment.
Oh, got gored.
Gored, dude. Fucking thing goes right up into his jaw and out of his mouth, and I was like, "You got what you deserve, bitch."
Yeah, and the violence in this game is just.
Yeah,
it's hard to watch at times. It's so violent and visceral.
It's one thing to watch fungus faces get their shit blown out of them, but a lot of human on human, we're not fungus, unfungus heroes.
Yeah.
But the whole all the worst to kill someone and find out she's pregnant.
But every single time this happens to Ellie, you can literally see a piece of her humanity fall away.
Yeah.
Because she does that, and then she goes up and sneaks up on another person who's just sitting back playing a PlayStation Vita, sticks a knife right through her throat too, and she falls down gurgling blood and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then eventually Ellie gets to
Did she take the PlayStation?
No, that's a good point, because it has Hotline Miami playing on it, which is a real game, and Ellie's all about video games. And finding the working PlayStation Vita in the post-apocalypse, why wouldn't you put that in your pocket?
My God.
But Ellie does it, which is but then again, I might give it a pass in this case because she just traumatically murdered a woman.
Yeah.
So maybe she wouldn't be like, oh, sweet, this is cool.
Sometimes I don't feel like playing games even just because I've had a strange bout of depression or a weird nap. But yeah, if I murdered somebody, I might not be in the right mindset to steal a video game console.
In another case,
product placement, by the way.
Yeah, she's forced to do something to get information that Joel taught her. Joel taught her how to interrogate two people.
Okay.
And what he says is that you put them both in a chair, or you have them facing away from each other.
Two chairs back to back.
You ask them both the same question at the same time, and you hold up a map, and you say, point on the map to where this person is. And if they both give different answers, you kill them both. Oh. And you tell them that.
Yeah.
You say, that way you can't lie. And if you do lie, you're forfeiting both your lives.
It's kind of the prisoner's dilemma, but so you have to work together to survive it.
Right, and if you can't see each other, you can't communicate, so your only option is to tell the truth and hope to God that the other person tells the truth too.
Right. Yeah. So she does that? Yeah,
and I think she kills them both anyway.
With wow. That's horrible.
Because this is a very dark and horrific Ellie.
Yeah.
And then you get to another scene where she goes back to the hospital to interrogate another character named Norma to try and figure out where Abby is. And you finally find Norma, and you go along this like intense chase, running down hallways and busting through windows while she throws bookcases down and her people are shooting at you. And you eventually get to the point where Norma stops at this ledge, and there's a giant hole in the floor. And there are areas in the game where the infected have been for a long period of time, where the infected fungal grows and it shoots spores up into the air. You can't go down there without being infected immediately. Mm-hmm. And once you're infected, it's just a matter of hours before you're dead.
Right.
And you're a fungal zombie.
Yeah.
So nobody goes down there, but Ellie can because she's immune. She doesn't need to wear a respirator or a face mask or anything like that. She just travels through it like it's nothing. And Joel always, always, always made her wear a mask when she was going into those areas, even knowing that it wouldn't affect her.
So people wouldn't know that she was...
Exactly.
Nice.
So if they ran into anyone, they wouldn't know that she was special.
See,
that's how careful Joel always was.
I'd be a great apocalypse dad.
Yeah, and that's why it hurts so much that they dumbed him down and made him just, my name's Joel, this is Tommy.
Hi there, my name's Joel, and I got a soft spot right in the back of my head. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so infuriating. But what happens is that Norma is teetering on her heels off the back of this platform.
Yeah.
and Ellie just dives at her and knocks her down and collapses on top of her at the bottom.
So they both fall down, but
right,
yeah,
because Ellie knows she's fine, but Norma's already down there. Norma's already a dead person.
Right.
So Norma's laying up against a wall, coughing and saying, "Just go ahead and kill me. I'm as good as dead. You got what you wanted. You got me."
Did she say something like either spore? I was trying to think of a mushroom.
Oh,
joke. Yeah. I just capped you.
Yeah. He's like, Ellie,
your button.
You used to be a fun guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so...
weird gills on the bottom.
Why are we down here? We don't have much room down here.
Much room. Ooh, nice one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do some psilocybin.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know. Go ahead.
So she's down there, and Ellie says, that's true, you're about to die. There's nothing I can do about that, but it doesn't have to be as slow as it's going to be.
Okay.
And Ellie has like a steel rod in her hand. And all you see is like Ellie's face just like gritting with anger and breathing heavily. And there's a little square button just like hovering around rapidly over her shoulder, wanting you to hit the square button so that you would beat her to death slowly so she'll give you the information.
So you're torturing to, which is like, that's asking a lot of the player.
Right. And you know what I did?
Simulate torture.
I took my controller and I put it down and I let it sit there for like 10 minutes until I realized this game is not going to give me the choice.
No matter.
It is going to force me to press this button no matter what I do.
Was the previous game like that? Wasn't it kind of like
Only
that
at the very end.
Only, okay.
When they took that choice away from you and made you kill the doctor.
So they're really forcing the... Okay, I mean, I have a question, and it kind of speaks to the whole show, but I might save it for the end. Hopefully I'll remember what it is. I'll say it right now, and maybe... But, like, had there not been the first game, would the experience of the second game been totally different? Maybe that's a question I can pose now, and later on we might remember to talk about that again. Because I think that sounds like it's an important kind of thing for those who care this much about this.
That's a good point,
show.
and I did write something to that. That's my point number 5.
Oh, all right. Point number 5.
Where basically I said that the one-dimensional revenge plot line can work, and it's not necessarily bad. We just didn't want this. We didn't want this story for these characters. Right. They deserve better.
The first game changed the way that the audience would receive the second game. For sure. Right. I mean, it's kind of true of any sequel in a way, but especially in an interactive storytelling.
There were so
what a video game is.
There were so many more meaningful, wonderful, nuanced, and complex stories that we could have taken these characters through. And to simply throw them into revenge bad, violence bad kind of story is a disservice to their memory and to who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fact that you're lecturing us about what is good and what is bad, and yet not giving us a choice to not do the bad things, is basically putting a knife in our hand, grabbing our wrist, and making us stab a cow, and then slapping us in the face and pointing at the bleeding cow and saying, "Bad! Why did you do this? Bad!"
Yeah, look how bad
it's not
person
fair.
you are.
Yeah,
right.
it is completely, wholly unfair.
Yeah,
but it's a linear story. They, like I said before, the best thing that I've heard anyone say is the game is about right and wrong, written by a man who thinks he knows what's right.
Sure.
So he's saying, this is bad, Joel is bad, Ellie is bad, Abby is good, and we're not going to let you decide for yourself. We're going to force it down your throat.
Right. All right.
And they do that, and here's, let's see, what did I say? Yeah, that's why I said it was so manipulative, because the way they tell the story is completely out of order. When Abby kills Joel, you don't know who Abby is, you don't know what her motivations are, and what it turns out to be is the doctor that you shot at the end of the first game in that operating room, Abby's father.
Abby's father.
She was a younger child there. It was 4 years ago. And then you eventually are forced to play as Abby, where you're running into the room after bonding with your father for like 5 minutes, which doesn't have the same effect at all as the effect that we had bonding with Joel.
So, okay.
And then you have to find him dead on the floor and watch her in a cutscene crying for her dead father. And we're expected to feel something for that. We're expected to spend 20 plus hours with Joel and Ellie in the first game, and then watch our beloved Joel get his head caved in, and then spend 45 seconds with Abby's father. And then suddenly we're supposed to have the same visceral emotional reaction to the death of Abby's father as we did to Joel. The man who took the choice away from Joel and took the choice away from Ellie, and who was ready to kill Ellie for the slightest chance at a vaccine. That piece of garbage. I'm supposed to care about him and not Joel?
Right.
Well, F you, Neil Druckmann.
Yeah, Neil Druckmann. More like Neil Fuckfaceman.
Well, they call him something else.
What? Druckhead?
Change the D to a C.
Cuckman?
Yeah.
That's not clever.
No, I didn't say it was.
Fuckfaceman is far more clever. It's not clever either. All right, so I want to make sure that people who are listening to this that might not have played the game, because I have a feeling that a lot of our audience may have not.
Oh no, we talked about all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, no, but you end up becoming Abby in the game for quite a substantial time. Am I jumping ahead with the way you want to tell
a tiny bit, but yeah, that's part of the problem is that you love Joel and Ellie so much.
Yeah.
You wanted to play the game as Joel and Ellie. Then you watch Joel get brutally murdered by a character that you have a raging, intense hatred for, and then all of a sudden the screen goes black, and suddenly you're playing as that character that just murdered Joel.
Oh, so you become her.
Yes.
Okay, at that right.
And
at that
you go back and forth certain times. You play as her 4 years ago as a child, then you play as her as an adult.
Are the time jumps a little unnerving? Because that's always
yes. It constantly takes you out of the narrative.
Yeah.
That's why I say that
you got to do that really well. When things screw up the time jumping around, that can be just like a mistake. It can work too.
This is how cheaply it's done.
Neil Cheapman.
Here's something else that I wrote when I first started playing the game.
Right.
I said that choices made in the story fail in the short term and are forced into effectiveness in the long term, creating a disproportionately high amount of criticism, which feels genuinely warranted in the first few hours of gameplay. And what I mean by that is they kill Joel brutally, which does not work in the short term.
Right.
But by the end of the story, they have done so much to try and force you to understand why and force you to care about Abby while also trying to get you to not care so much about Joel. I'll give you a perfect example. And this is also related back to the trailers, the deceptive trailers.
Yeah.
There was some footage that was released early on before the game came out. And in this footage, it showed enemies walking around with dogs. And people immediately freaked out and started tweeting out and saying things like, "Oh God, I can't play this game. You can't make me kill a dog. Don't make me kill a dog."
Not even a digital dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people, I love dogs more than anyone else on this planet.
You could smash a bandicoot, but you can't smash a dog?
Yes.
Come on.
And it bothered me a lot the first times I had to kill a dog because it was sniffing around where I was and was going to catch me.
Yeah.
Until the point I got to playing as Abby and I stopped caring and I started throwing Molotov cocktails all over the dogs and stuff. But anyway,
well,
they responded to it.
The system works.
And they said, "Don't worry. The dogs are there to add an enhanced sense of reality to the stealth portion of this game. But if you don't want to kill the dogs, you don't have to kill the dogs.
You can just spray it with a spider web and stick it to the wall."
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they explicitly said, "Don't worry, you don't have to kill the dogs."
Yeah.
At a certain point in time, you're playing as Ellie. You walk through a doorway and you have found where Abby is.
And she's a dog. She's become a dog.
But before you get to Abby, a dog rushes you and jumps on you and is snapping and snarling at your neck. And you're holding it off with one arm, and there's that good old little hovering square box.
Press square to kill the dog.
And if you don't press square, guess what happens?
You have to marry the dog.
No, you die, game over, load a game. Oh, look, the dog's on top of me again.
Yeah.
You press square, and Ellie stabs the living crap out of that dog. Kills it immediately. You don't have to kill a dog. I guess he wasn't lying. You don't have to if you don't want to finish the game.
Yeah, they should have named the company Slotty Dog.
Yeah.
Slaughtered. Get it, James?
Yeah. So here's the manipulative part.
Yeah.
You just played as Ellie. You were forced into killing a dog.
Was the dog pregnant? Did it turn out?
We don't know.
Did like 17 little demon babies came flying out
and shortly thereafter, suddenly you're back, forced into playing as Abby in Abby's compound, and Abby walks by the dog, and this is the flashback.
Oh, right.
Walks by the dog and starts petting, go, "Hey, boy, good boy." And then you spend the next 10 minutes outside playing fetch with the dog and throwing a ball and letting it bring it back and throwing the ball, bonding with the dog as if to say, "Abby good, Ellie bad."
Right. Or, yeah, sure. I mean, I can see the impulse as a writer who's trying to tell a story to be like, okay, let's have them kill the dog and then let's fuck with them by making them play with the dog, I do a time backwards jump, and now we get to see that the dog, I think an interesting movie would be about the goons in a James Bond movie, or pick your anything with goons, Jackie Chan always killing goons, where you actually maybe follow the goon home and see what their life, because like there is a lot of senseless murder even in this one. I know that that's not the way that these things are done. I mean, you can't go into the nuance of every person, because in this game you're talking about all these vengeances and these bloodlusty people that want to get at each other, but you're also killing about 1,700 people along the way. So each one of those has just as much as a justification. But that's just the nature of storytelling, especially a violent video game, where you're just going to be like Grand Theft Auto 5. If you had to be like, oh no, I care about the lady coming out of the donut shop who I dragged over, whatever.
Yeah,
so,
and the pregnant woman that Ellie kills, you get to meet her traveling with Ellie and bond with her, and traveling with Abby and bond with her and find out that she's a wonderful person. She's a doctor. She was the assistant to Abby's father who was killed, and she's like and she's pregnant and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when I got to the point where I had to kill the dog, and then suddenly I was playing fetch with the dog, I wrote number 6.
All right, let's hear it.
Which is the order in which the story is told and the gimmicks used to force sympathy unto Abby while demonizing Joel and Ellie are cheap, lazy, and beneath the level of storytelling that fans deserved.
Sorry, the fly was back.
It's just so shallow, manipulative, and just infuriating.
Yeah, it's very obvious what they're doing. Like, it's not even subtle or clever or skillfully done. It's very blunt. Like they might as well have just taken the dog's head, ripped it out like Mortal Kombat with its spine still attached, and then forced you to like replace your childhood stocking over the fireplace with the dog's spine. Yeah, they might as well have just fucking done that.
Yeah, and then we get to the scene where she kills Joel, where it catches up to that point.
Okay, and so you have to experience that scene again.
We get to see more of it because when we first saw it, we were seeing it through the eyes of Ellie, who gets knocked out. And then we get to see what Ellie missed after she was knocked out.
Oh, okay.
And we get to see the whole group was just about ready to kill Ellie and to kill everyone else in the room, but Abby stops them and says, no. We came here for Joel only. And they fight with her, saying, no, they're going to be witnesses. They're going to come after us. She goes, no, if we do that, we're just as bad as he was. And points down to Joel's bubbling corpse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was bubbling?
Well, gurgling and...
Yeah. But that's pretty grisly.
Yeah. So it's just... The whole point of that scene, again, Joel bad, Abby good.
Yeah. Joel bad, Abby good. Maybe that's what the third one will be called.
Oh.
All right. Okay. So clearly they're committed to creating the sense in the player of the moral. I think they're going for what they thought was probably much more clever than it really was, which is like,
yes,
all right, we're going to make it seem that like they kill people, but we're going to take this for the sequel. Like this is like the brainstorming pitch or something, or in their initial conception of the sequel and how to craft the story, is we're going to show the moral, the consequences of all the people that they kill by honing in on one of their victims and attaching her to one of the characters from the previous one, which they chose, the doctor. So the doctor's daughter, she'll be somebody who Ellie has an encounter with. Maybe she's fine. Maybe she has a bloodlust vengeance to kill Joel. Okay, that sounds good. All right, yeah. And then we'll come up with a reason for her and Joel to have an encounter. And then Joel, of course, they write him so poorly, put him in the situation where he gets himself killed. Well, he doesn't get it, but like he wasn't the same. He was out of character, is what I mean. And so then you can see how they want to be like, all right, well now we'll tell all the backstory of how Ellie, is it Ellie or Elle?
Ellie
yeah. Wants to get vengeance, but through her vengeance quest, she's going to kill a bunch of people, and then we're also going to introduce all our players, the people who paid us $60, to not all, but some of Ellie's victims, so to speak, if we could use the word victim. Maybe that's not the right word for this exact context. And then the player will be able to realize that there is a multiple sides to every story, that just because someone died in a moment, there's actually a backstory. There's a concept called Sonder, I think is the word. Sonder? I don't know. It's just, I might be totally fudging this up, but it's like this notion that all these lights you see on the highway, all the lights you see in the hills when you drive around, well, every that's a home, that's a person. The people you walk by on the street, that's a person with a life that is just as complex, and a social life, and a bunch of grief and pain and joy and success and love and peace and hatreds and whatever else is that makes up a complex human life that everybody gets to experience this, but and for most people in the world, they're just a background light in our own life. They flow through the world in streams past us on the road, on the sidewalks as we drive by them, and we only really experience our own little world within that, our own type, and we are their background character. So it's like they're trying to illustrate that kind of, I don't know if that's cosmic, but that sort of holistic-y kind of notion, but they're doing it by damaging the or at least completely uprooting what the first game accomplished, which was to really bore down or really plant deep roots of concern and care by making Joel and Ellie feel like family to the player.
Yeah.
To not literally family, but like that, because they were a victim of their own emotional skill in storytelling in the first game, because they made you care too much about these folks. This wasn't Dr. Mega Man and Mr. Saw Hands or whatever their names are. Yeah. This wasn't some nameless 8-bit pixel piece of shit. This wasn't Yoshi. I would chop Yoshi's head off if I could.
Part of the problem, I agree. I don't care for Yoshi either. No, but think about it this way: imagine that you read a book.
All right,
and this book meant a lot to you, and the characters meant a lot to you, and this is your favorite book ever. Mm-hmm. You have emotional attachment to the characters, and it's written by
Eat, Pray, Love, my favorite book.
Let's say it's written by Bob Jordan, to make a fake name. I'm sure there's many Bob Jordans out there.
No offense, BJ.
Oh, good. I didn't think about that.
It's fine. I don't know.
So you read this book.
Yeah.
And then 7 years later, the sequel to the book comes out. But you find out Bob Jordan has died. And now this is somebody else who bought the intellectual property for the book and came in and wrote the sequel. And in the first 2 hours, he kills off and demonizes and changes your favorite characters and then goes off on this other weird tangent.
It's become a sloppy Bob Jordan.
Would you be upset? Because that's what Neil Druckmann did.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, it's similar to
These were not his characters to F with.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't experience the same ownership of, not that you're using that word ownership, but I don't experience the same kind of buy-in to most stories at all, really, that others do. I'm probably lacking some sort of gear there that prevents me from doing that, but I can see why they would think it's their story, because they had tremendous success with the first one. Mm-hmm. Then you're some rich Hollywood prick, being buddies with the Game of Thrones guys or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get to get a little high on your own supply with a lot of success. Maybe people didn't tell them, like, hey, wait a minute, maybe you're fucking with the players a little too much with this stuff. Yeah, because I think there's something to the idea that let's reveal some of the ambiguities with this, let's open up door number 3 here, which would be like the backstory of the people who get killed in these violent situations.
But think about the movie Memento.
All right, I'm there. Wait, I just forgot.
So
I'm there. I'm forgetting
people
again.
Think it's a good movie, right?
Yeah.
There's in the special edition of the movie, there is a very hard to get to Easter egg within the menus where you can force the movie to play in chronological order.
Oh, really? And
you know how good the movie is when it's in chronological order? It sucks.
It's just a bunch of weird, violent encounters.
It is boring. You know exactly what's going to happen because the whole gimmick of that movie is that it's told out of order to put you into the same forgetfulness mindset as the protagonist.
Right.
So it works when you manipulate the order of the story elements, but it's done in such a way that is creative and serves the story well.
And serves the primary character.
This game tells the story out of order in ways that are completely blatantly obvious, telegraphed, and reeks of a lack of creativity overall.
Yeah. Like they should have done a separate franchise called Last of Them. And then it's Abby's crew. And they encounter Joel and Ellie. And they still have, and because Abby's right to want to get vengeance. Someone kills my dad for trying to save the world. Not that's why he killed him, but I'm going to start working out. Okay? I'm going to make friends with pregnant women and send them on missions and give them PlayStation Veritas.
But here's the thing. Do you know how they demonize that character for making the decision to rob Joel and Ellie of the choice?
You mean Abby? Which character?
Mark, the doctor.
Oh, okay. How they demonize him? What did you say?
How they demonize Joel and Ellie and put him on a pedestal.
Oh.
I said demonize because I was going to basically say, well, they don't. So basically what it is that he goes into his back room and he's looking at an x-ray or something, and he looks a little bit distraught. and he talks to his assistant or his nurse or his I don't know what she is. For all I know, she could be the chief surgeon and he reports to her.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Colleague. Let's say colleague.
I don't know what her job was.
Coworker.
Yeah. And he says, you know what? I this is going to kill her, but I have to do it. It's the right thing to do. And this woman says, okay, I'm not going to tell you I'm okay with it because I'm not. This is not right.
Yeah.
But you do what you feel you have to do. Just know that I'm going to go out there and tell Joel because that man deserves to know.
Oh, okay.
And she goes and tells him, and that's...
Oh, that's how Joel finds out in the game?
I don't recall, but I think that's probably what it was. It's been 7 years since I played the first game. So.
Okay, all right.
So...
Yeah, that just sounds lazy. Right, it's like lazy writing.
Right. So, in that case, they spent very little time trying to paint what he did as bad, and a whole lot of time painting what Joel did as bad.
Oh, you're meaning... Okay.
They didn't weigh it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I never really thought of the doctor as a bad person in that scenario. It just, to me, it was more like the whole thing with the apocalypse is that everybody has to make horrible decisions all the time, and you're probably going to have to do some stuff you'd rather not do. One of the reasons we should design society in a way to avoid the fucking apocalypse, right? On my podcast, I do a joke called Apocalypse Training Courses. Every episode I start saying, because it's like, I'm trying to monetize. The joke is that I'm trying to make the apocalypse profitable before it happens by offering classes to teach people what to do in the apocalypse. And it's like stuff like take the label off the cat food and shit like that. Yeah. I don't have it fully fleshed out because it's not like a full cartoon or something, but it's so... Anyway, but like, I've always been like, when I think about the dystopian future that seems more and more likely as life goes on and on, if we could keep choosing the leaders that we do, that we're all going to be forced, if we're not dead or become fungus faces, that you're going to have to make morally ambiguous choices. So in the first game, I never think of the doctor. I mean, they don't give you much mind to think of the doctor anyway. You just have to do what you have to do in that moment because that's what you've been doing.
I waited like 10 minutes and tried to shoot over the shoulder so I didn't have to.
Well, right. You don't want to do that. But like I don't think they need to make that an evil thing. He's not doing it. You know, I don't know. I mean, he's trying to save humanity, I guess, and it is bad to do that to somebody. That's an ethical question. It's an ethical thought experiment.
If he had come out of that room and said to Joel, hey, turns out in order to have a shot at a vaccine, it's 100% going to kill her, and there's maybe like a 10% chance we can make a vaccine. You want to go forward with it?
Right.
And Joel would say, hell no.
Yeah.
But he took that decision away from Joel and took that decision away from Ellie and said, I'm just going to go with it because I feel like I know what's right.
Yeah. That ethical question. Go ahead.
Again, going back to written by a man who always thinks he knows what's right.
Yeah.
He doesn't demonize this guy because he thinks that was the right decision. He takes that choice away from us, takes that decision, that judgment away from us, and paints the story as though the doctor was right all along.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking. I don't know if this is even relevant, so that's why I'm kind of hesitating. But there's that ethical question about like AI technology or cars. If it sees that it's either going to kill one person going straight, or if it swerves over to save 4, if it swerves over to kill 1. There's that. It's like a fairly standard ethics conundrum that they use to explore this topic because there's no right answer. There's no exactly right answer. You can't.
Yeah. Would you kill 1 if you had a 10% chance at saving 4?
Well, that's what I was saying though. Is like I read this book recently. Anyway, it brought it up, and it said that someone else came by with that thought and changed it slightly. That you have to push somebody off a bridge in order to save the 4. So now it changes the users, meaning like the person doing thinking it through. Now you have to take action to kill somebody yourself in order to save those people, as opposed to what do you think this humanless scenario or like robotic decision making should be. And people's attitudes change when they're forced with the pressure of them being the ones making the call to actually impose the harm on someone else. Just to show that there's even more nuance to it if you are the person, or if you are presented with the idea that you actually have to do the harm, as opposed to just deciding how should it be programmed or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure how that fits necessarily.
At the very, 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 very end of the game, there was a flashback that shows the last conversation that Ellie and Joel ever had.
Mm-hmm.
and it's Ellie upset with Joel.
Where's my Andre Dawson rookie card?
Yeah, she found out that she forced him into finally telling the truth about the hospital, and just the acting that the Joel's character did, where he was standing there and he couldn't get any words out of his mouth. You could just the animation of his face. You could feel how tortured he was. That he knew this day would come eventually,
right? And
he was not ready to deal with it.
And he'd been carrying that from the moment he decided to kill the doctor. He knew that eventually he might have to explain this shit to Ellie. Yeah.
And he finally told her, because she said something like, if you don't tell me the truth right now, I'm leaving and you'll never see me again. But if you tell me the truth, I will go back to Jackson with you. And then he told her the truth. And then she started crying and yelling. And she said, I'm coming back to Jackson with you, but we're done.
Isn't that where she goes like, my life is supposed to have meaning or something like that? Right?
Yeah. That's the very end. So the final conversation between the two of them was standing out on a porch. And she said that line, we went all this way to get the cure. If they had asked me, I would have said, yes, I will die for this. My life would have had meaning and you robbed me of that.
Yeah.
And he responded to that saying, if I had to go back in time and do it all over again, I'd do it exactly the same.
Yeah.
As if to say, you matter as much to me now as you did back then.
I feel the same about that time my brother stopped me from burning down a Hot Topic. I almost had meaning in my life.
Yep.
All right. Can we jump through the plot a little more, though? I feel like there's a whole sequence that we have.
Oh, yeah. We stopped at a certain point.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't... unless there's more to say before you want to get to that.
No, so to kind of power through the rest of the story...
We got 4 more hours to go, everybody. Settle in. Cancel tonight's listless hair pulling. And just focus on the goddamn YouTube video.
Okay. So Ellie, you transition from Ellie over into Abby.
Yeah.
And you start seeing the world from Abby's point of view. You find out that Abby's entire
group
is a much bigger, much more advanced, much more well stocked and armed than the people in Jackson.
Like the Romulans.
And they live in a football stadium.
Okay.
And then as soon as Abby leaves her room and starts walking around, you see this massive gym set out. And you're like, oh, that's why she's a beefcake. She's spent her entire life in this area. And even when you go back 4 years and you see her as a child, she's a jacked little child.
All right.
So she's been working out forever.
Yeah, you live in a football stadium. You might as well. Maybe you'll make it onto the varsity squad.
Yeah, and they've got like big farms where they're growing food and everything. They are well stocked and well established. It's still a bit...
Did they put mannequins in the audience? That's what I would have done.
Yeah. It's still... I still have to say... that the level of her bulk is still way extreme, but they try to explain it in passing by showing this gym here.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like a strong woman. Beat my ass. Beat my ass, baby!
I mean, I will say right now, every time that you play her in a combat situation, it's fun as heck. Because you are this gigantic, powerful person, and you can go up there and melee person and like rip their head off with your bare hands.
Oh, so that she's got like strong.
Oh, she's like a bear, so she can really take people down.
Is there a sequence where she catches salmon with her mouth?
There may as well have been
looking for sex.
So you find out about her people, you find out where she comes from, what her motivations are, you go back into a flashback and meet the father, you relive her nightmare from night to night of going into that room and seeing her father dead on the ground, so you know that she's emotionally scarred by it, you understand why she wants to go out and get vengeance, you play with the dog that you know that Ellie murdered, you bond with the pregnant woman that you know Ellie murdered, you bond with your friend Manny, who you know that Ellie eventually murders.
Yeah.
And everything that is done with Abby is designed to paint Abby in a positive light.
Do you leave baseball cards around the world?
No, you don't do that. But what you do is Abby collects something different. She doesn't look for playing cards. She looks for quarters from different states around the U.S.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And she does that because her father collected quarters.
He liked to leave them in his patients.
Yes, a
little wishing well for a surgeon. Yeah.
So it's an homage to her father that she still collects and looks for these quarters.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense. I don't have a problem with that.
Sure. Because his life is only worth 50 times 2250.
Yes.
Wait. Fuck. Oh, crap.
All she wanted in life was some change.
Yeah. She finds an Obama poster that says change. She's like, all right.
It's change she can believe in.
What's 0.25? It's wait, why can't I do this? 10? 1250.
She just wants to do some laundry.
1250.
Yep.
Anyways. Yeah, she's got laundry to do. They raised the price $1.75. Fuck. I gotta clean the lint out from somebody else.
You unlock the quarter roll so you can more effectively carry them.
Right.
On your belt loop.
Yeah. Right. And she ends up. Yeah. Oh, you mean like the little dispenser belt?
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
So the whole story.
So now you become Abby and you get to see all the backstory of all those people.
Right. And you'll understand if you ever. And I did this too before I knew that other people were doing it. When you first start playing as Abby, you can go on YouTube and find a million videos of Abby death montages where people just get her and they just intentionally fling her off rooftops to watch her die and let zombies eat her to watch her die because people genuinely hate her.
Totally healthy.
She killed the character that you loved, and now all of a sudden you're forced to play as a person that you hate.
Gotcha.
It's understandable.
Yeah, well, maybe that's part of the mission accomplished. Art is supposed to provoke a feeling and an emotion. And maybe people will take that and then do some meditation, maybe light some incense, some tea. You don't light tea, you just boil it or something. And then sit back and reflect on the moral complications of a society that's gone mad.
If the story were written in a competent way, yes.
No, I'm saying... Maybe some people will have that feeling or that reaction, but there's a lot of folks out there that would not, might not be equipped with the emotional health to have that kind of a nuanced self-reflection.
Before we get to the end, I'll tell you this. Is that at the very end of the game, when all was said and done with, I felt the way they wanted me to feel. I felt like Abby was misunderstood. I felt like she was a good character, a good person, and I felt like Ellie was in the wrong.
Mission accomplished.
And then I started thinking about what made me feel that way, and I started thinking, oh my God, the dog that I had to kill and then I had to play with. The pregnant woman that I had to travel around with that then Ellie had to kill. Ellie being forced to murder the woman in the pipe in the hospital. Ellie still shooting people in the head after they cooperate with her and give her information.
Yeah.
The game manipulated me in very cheap and gimmicky ways and forced me to feel a way that I should not logically have felt. And I got ticked off.
It would be illogical if you didn't feel that, because you're a sensitive man.
But I started thinking just how cheap the manipulation was, how poor the storytelling was.
You don't want it to be so obvious that you're being manipulated.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to feel as if you're making your own emotional decisions as opposed to being led by the collar down the hallway of emotion.
Now, is it different than a movie in terms of what you expect in terms of a movie?
No.
Because I mean, when you go to a movie, you're inviting being emotionally manipulated. You're disappointed if you're not. Manipulation has a negative connotation, so maybe that word isn't really precise for what I'm trying to say. But the whole point of enjoying a movie is that you have an emotional experience, positive or negative. Like, I mean, obviously not the kind where you hate it and go, I fucking hate this movie because it sucks, like Knives Out. We should do it. No, I know.
It was okay.
It was okay. It didn't deserve the huge reaction it got, but it was definitely an okay movie. Anyway, I'm just saying, like a well-crafted book, movie, video game, art, right? I keep using that term, but it's something that we do on purpose that's not work. We love the ones that manipulate you really well to feel something, to care about the characters. Goodfellas is a movie that works so well and has such a seems to stand the test of time. I'm talking about myself, obviously. Shawshank Redemption is one of those. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. I thought that was pretty good. No, I don't know. That was an okay movie. But all those ways that you get manipulated. But in a video game, the kind of calculus of it all, like physics of it, sort of the emotional physics, are substantially different because it's a choose your own adventure sort of. The gamer, the player, is although some games don't have the same linear progression that they all have. Some of them that really branch off in different storylines. Or there's like really open sandbox games. I think like one of the reasons Minecraft is such a successful game and it's such a quality game is that there's tremendously effective storytelling going on just in terms of limited resources, which is time. Every night you know that daylight is going on, and so you get to tell your own story. 7 Days to Die, you get to tell your own story based on how you want to play the game. And that's a feature of those open sandbox kind of games, the good ones. This game is very linear, though. They really do have you on rails as far as this goes.
The entire time. There's no divergence
they're
at all.
simulating the idea, the the notion of agency, as if it's like press, like if you're in like a Mickey Mouse like moving audience chair where they spray in the face with perfume to make it feel like you're in there, or whatever they do to make it you can feel Mickey's poo. It's like you don't actually do anything, but they still want you to feel like you're doing something, like a kid steering a car, a wheel in the back seat of a car, but his parents are actually driving.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure what I'm rambling about, but like this one manipulated you to care about Abby, right? So you play Abby for quite a while,
for
right?
about 10 hours.
10 hours. That's a decent amount of time. And during all that experience, you do eventually, like, she's well-realized character, well-acted, everything's high quality about the...
In terms of the acting and everything, everything about this game would be a 10 out of 10, aside from the story. And what's the most important part of a game? The story. I guess the only detriment I could say is...
the cover art, honestly.
Well, speaking of the cover art...
They should have put Warren Moon on the cover.
Speaking of the cover art, though, how would you feel if I handed you a Diet Coke in a can?
Not that fucking Oral Hershiser...
Right, and you crack it open in a hot day, and it's nice and cold. You take a big swig, and you find out it's really orange Fanta in there.
I would stab you in the pregnant belly.
Right, and that's what this game did. It was like, here's our trailer, here's our promise you don't have to kill a dog, here's what it's going to be about, here's your Diet Coke can, and then as soon as you take a big swig, it's a big swig of Dead Joel.
Dead Joel, yeah. A smoothie of his brains.
Yeah.
His tough, handsome brains. Yeah, the misleading advertising was really that was like an extra twist of meanness. It's like they're already like murdering you with some poison.
There's
like, let's
nothing
put some different poison.
Clever about lying to your audience. That's just pure deception.
It's one thing to withhold. It's even that thing where trailers, like I was saying earlier, where they piece together like a response that's not actually in the movie, or in the movie Twister, I recall, famous for the shot where the big tire flies right into the camera, and you're like, "Oh my god, it's gonna be so cool!" And then it's not even in the movie. Yeah. And you're like, "I want my $1.50 back," and you spit popcorn vomit. Okay, but anyway, do we want to get to the end, or is there more to get to with Abby?
I'm almost to the end.
Oh, okay. All right.
So basically, everything Abby does is seen in a positive light. Everything they did before, Ellie and Joel, negative light. So you go on this long journey with Abby, where you bond with the people that you're with, that Ellie eventually kills.
Yeah.
And you eventually meet up with these two young children. And it turns out that the Wolves, the WLF group, is at war with people they call Scars, which is like this religious group of people who are they're like evil Amish people who they cut their sort of like Joker scars going up from the corners of the mouths up to their ears, which is why they get the name Scars. But the reason they do it is because they say they want to look to their God and say, we are born imperfect and we want to celebrate our own imperfections in your eyes and all this kind of garbage.
Some goofy cult thing.
So they have their own city, their own established thing, and the WLF are at war with the Scars. But they're really called Seraphites, but they don't know that because they never spend time to actually stop and talk to these people. They simply call them Scars as if they're not human.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So there comes a point in time where Abby meets up with these two... Abby actually gets captured by the Scars, and she's hanging by a noose, choking to death, looking at all these other people hanging around her who have been disemboweled, knowing that she's about to die a brutal death. And then in comes an arrow that flies in through the throat of the person that's about to disembowel her. So she's still hanging and choking to death, while these two kids with a bow and arrow and weaponry come in to kill the Scars. And they're standing there looking at her, realizing that she's not one of the Scars, and they can't help her, because if they help her, then she's, being one of the WLF, are going to kill them, because they themselves are Scars.
Oh, why
the two kids... And we'll get into why they are killing their own people.
All right.
So they, against their better judgment, cut Abby down, and Abby becomes an ally, like a mother figure to them. Abby is like the Joel to Ellie to them.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is that it turns out it's two sisters. But one of the sisters comes to a point where she realizes that she doesn't feel like she's a girl. She feels like she's a boy. So she shaves her head and starts dressing and speaking and acting like a boy, because that's what she feels is right for her.
Okay.
And so she's called Lev in the game.
All right.
I forget what... I think her real name is Lily, but she changes it to Lev.
Okay.
And that's why they're going after them to try and kill them, because their group views that as is a death sentence. You can't do that because she was promised to be, and I say she because before she changed, she was promised to be condemned to being the wife of one of the elders in their group.
Oh, I see.
So they were assigned roles. And this poor kid
that
was like,
up the cult leader's playing.
The poor kid was like, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm Lev. I don't see myself as Lily. You can't make me do this. I'm going to cut my hair and you're going to accept me. Okay. But he did that. They did not accept him, so they had to go running. And he's emotionally devastated by that. He is torn to pieces that his own people, his own mother, would try and kill him for doing that. So in this confrontation, his sister Yara gets held down and her arm gets beaten into shards with a hammer. So as Abby, you're carrying and trying to save these two children. So it's building trust and building an affinity for Abby because she's doing the right thing. She's helping her enemy, and in doing so, she demonizes herself against the WLF, and she gets to a point where she has to attack and kill members of the WLF for helping the Scars, for helping these two Scar children. So that becomes a point of conflicting interests for her, and you learn to grow to like Yara, you learn to grow to like Lev. They're great characters. Yara ends up getting riddled with bullets, and it kind of sucks though because you go on this massive journey back to the hospital to find medical equipment, and you fight this hideous boss creature, which you saw, the Rat King. Remember that thing?
Vaguely.
So you have to kill that thing to get the supplies back.
Oh yeah, I remember it now, running around all about. Yeah,
right, so that Mel, who is still alive, the pregnant woman, can help amputate her arm to save her life because she's got compartment syndrome or something like that. She's going to die if she stays that way. So you finally get her arm off. She's safe. She's okay. She's all bandaged up, and she's traveling with you. And not less than an hour later, she's like being riddled with 1,000 rounds of bullets while you escape with Lev.
Right.
So Yara dies, and then you're traveling around with Lev, and you go through all these trials and tribulations, and you get a flashback of this like very cringe-inducing, weird, awkward, out of left field sex scene between Abby and her boyfriend Owen, who is actually now Owen and Mel, I think, are a couple. It's Mel's baby is Owen's, but Abby and Owens were boyfriend-girlfriend back when they were kids.
Okay.
And they have this weird little side fling that causes Mel to hate Abby. And they actually show like full frontal chest on Abby, which is a really weird choice because I thought Sony wouldn't show anything like that.
Yeah.
But that part still I don't quite understand, but whatever.
Well, sure. I mean, it's funny how like dozens of hours of brutal violence. I'm not saying this about you, but like the human form in a way. I was like, oh my god, no! Like,
that's the thing. So the reason it's shocking is because Sony is not known for censoring violence. They don't do that.
That's what I'm saying.
They are known for censoring that.
My comment is about society in general. Like, we freak out if we see a penis or boobs or butt or whatever. But like the normalization of violence is to me stands out as something that not that I think we should even censor that either, but I'm saying like I get it.
But I think and I know I said I wasn't going to touch on this, but I'll touch on it briefly to explain one thing, is that I think in the early stages of the game there was a leak, and the leak did show that sex scene. And the leaks also mentioned that there's a transgendered character, which would be Lev.
Yeah,
the little kid. And I think people saw that scene, because Abby isn't like super well endowed because she's super muscly. And I guess when you get that buff, it kind of detracts from other anatomical things.
Sure, and there's different configurations of the slider on the boob distribution is.
So I think people genuinely made the connection that because they were showing her chest in the scene, and because of the orientation of how they were going at it, that clearly that must be the transgender character because they wouldn't show a woman's chest.
Oh, okay.
And that's why they started taking the death of Joel and attributing it to the fact, they're trying to make a political statement because here's our character that we love being beaten to death by a transgendered person.
Right.
That's what these people were going after.
Yeah.
And again, that's as much I want to talk about that because that's total bull crap. It's nonsense. But I think that's why they thought that.
There's a logical flow chart to that thinking that you're talking about.
Doesn't mean that their thinking is right.
Let me be clear. I don't mean logical to what they're right or anything. It's because I think that all human stories are compelling, no matter the exact configuration of a person's gender, sex, character, biology, whatever. And then we screw with all that by injecting culture and then training our children to hate the people we hate. So like I'm saying, like, we should. It's okay for there to be a transgender character. It's okay for there to be a transgender bad villain too. You know what I mean? Like in a utopian sense in the world. You know, we want there is a version of humanity where we aren't afraid of our differences, but we can approach them and talk about them and celebrate them, and also. There's also cultural things that need to be improved in the world. I don't think all cultures are fine. Clitorectomy is terrible. That's absolutely disgusting that they do that to young women in various places in the world. So like there's various evolutions that I think are necessary for humanity to survive the problems we're in. Anyway, I'm not sure I'm going to well, but yeah, like it's unfortunate that we're nowhere near that world yet. Yeah. It's quite a ways off. Right. It's scary, sadly.
Yeah. Okay.
It sucks.
To get to the end of this whole thing, the first confrontation happens where finally Ellie catches up to Abby. Ellie knows that Abby is being holed up in this aquarium. Yeah. So she gets to him, and I forget the order in which it happens, but Ellie kills Mel. Ellie kills I think she kills Manny. I forget exactly how he dies, but he does die. And I think Ellie kills Owens too, which was her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So everyone that Abby ever loved or cared about has been killed by Ellie at this point. Even her dog has been killed by Ellie. Ellie has taken everything from her, but Ellie feels justified because she took Joel away from Ellie. Yeah. So you get to this point, and Abby has Ellie at gunpoint, and Ellie throws the gun down and says something like, you know, don't do this. Don't kill Tommy, who's laying on the ground. She's already shot him in the back. I don't know how he survived. He does survive though. Okay. And she shoots Jesse through the eye, through the cheek actually. So Jesse is killed by Abby. And she's saying, she yells, "I know why you killed Joel. I'm the one you want. Let her live," or something like that.
Who says that?
Ellie does.
Ellie says that
because Ellie doesn't want Dina dead or everyone else dead. So she's saying, "Take me. Forget about all this stuff."
All right. And she's desperate for her life to have meaning.
Right. And then Abby says something like, "How dare you? You killed everyone. You killed all my friends. You killed everyone I care about. Yeah. And you want mercy now?" And she actually has a point, because you were forced to do all those terrible things as plain as Ellie.
Yeah. And Abby killed a bunch of people that Ellie cared about. Ellie killed a bunch of people that Abby cared about. Not in a tit for tat way. Like, it's not like it was like, all right, you got me up. Well, it's not like a chess game. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying, like, it's more of it than that kind of arbitrary, cruel, senseless violence kind of way, which is unfortunately a reality in a lot of war-torn areas of the world. Or, I mean, there's a lot of cruelness in just standard society. People in America will die because they don't have insulin and they can't afford insulin, and that's a kind of cruelty and a kind of violence that we are all accustomed to, that we should find as abhorrent as a violent murder. Anyway, that's me and my soapbox there. But anyway, the point being that this is sort of like the plot of war games. The best defense is not to play, meaning that you're playing there's no way to win. That this apocalypse stuff is so bad. I'm not trying to say I think this is what they're saying, nor am I even saying that this is exactly like how I am choosing to interpret it. But I think that you could make this case that maybe, or you tell me if I'm wrong, please. I don't, because I didn't see all of the playthrough of you playing it. That isn't that kind of like what they're showing in a way, like that they're building a case for why just the brutality and the senselessness exists on all sides. Mm-hmm. They just happened to approach that very clumsily and irresponsibly. They didn't manage the garden that they had planted with the first game, because they were so gung-ho on these specific dynamics. Yeah. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No.
You, by all means.
But you do get to this point where it's the two characters facing off against each other. You would think...
Are we at the very end now?
We're almost
I have
there.
video of that. That's the one I video. Tell me.
Well, no. This is when I texted you thinking I was at the end, but I wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
There's not much more left to explain, though, after this.
Yeah, totally.
So you're at the end like this, where it's the final two characters showing down, facing down. Uh-huh. You would think at that point there'd be like an option, like press triangle to play as Ellie, press square to play as Abby, choose your side.
Press circle to play as a dog ghost.
That would be good, yes. But it doesn't give you that choice.
Ooh.
Again, it chooses for you who the good person is, and suddenly there you are playing as Abby again. And you're playing as her, chasing Ellie down, shooting at Ellie.
That's weird.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's jarring. It's like I watched other people play this scene out who were streaming it, and they all said the same thing. As soon as the cutscene thing went over and they found out they were playing as Abby, they put the controller down and said, "No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hurt Ellie. I want Ellie to kill Abby. And what they did was they would go back there, run into the room, and just kept letting Ellie kill her over and over and over.
Yeah.
Saying, this is how it's supposed to go. Why am I playing Abby? But you eventually get to the point where you play as Abby, and if you do what the game wants you to do, you end up choking her near to death, and you have her pinned to the ground, just beating her face until it's bloody and unrecognizable.
All right.
And then and Abby then goes over and actually while you're beating Ellie's face into pulp, Dina comes out of the blue because she's there.
Yeah. With
Ellie's knife and starts slashing Ellie across her giant arms, and she blocks him with her tree trunk arms. And then
wait, hold on. Dina cuts Ellie?
Abby.
Oh, Abby. Okay.
Because she's trying to get Abby off of Ellie.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Dina gets overpowered, and Abby is now holding Dina with a knife to her throat. And Ellie looks up and screams, "No, don't! She's pregnant."
Uh-huh.
And you know what Abby says to that?
"I'll be back."
No, she just smiles and says, "Good," and then starts getting ready to cut.
Yeah.
And she says that because Ellie killed her good friend Nell, who was also pregnant. So in Abby's mind, it's like, yeah, retribution. Here it comes.
And was she playing a Dreamcast or something at the time?
No.
Yeah.
But
inappropriate for me.
But then she looked over at Lev, who was standing in the corner, and Lev called out Abby's name and shook her head, and that brought Abby back to her senses, realizing that doing this would only make her the same monster that Ellie is.
Yeah, they're caught up in the bloodlust.
Right.
Yeah.
But Abby has that realization. Ellie doesn't. Again, right. Abby good, Ellie bad. Very obvious.
Uh-huh.
So what happened there, and before that even went down, Abby yells at Ellie saying, "We didn't kill you back in Jackson. We let you live and you wasted it." Again, going back to the whole concept of, we're the good ones, we came for Joel, we didn't come for you,
right.
We let you live, and you couldn't let your vengeance go, and you did all this.
That's a rational thing to say in that moment, though. Like, hey, what the fuck? We let you go, we got vengeance, and then now you're, like, but that's the kind of, it's not like vengeance is like an Excel spreadsheet where everything balances out perfectly by the end of by the time you get down to row M. You know what I'm saying? Like, vengeance is it's an irrational, it's a rational, irrational kind of thing that it's going to be unsatisfying and unfair for everybody. It's a Pyrrhic thing. It's like, I'm going to cause you pain because you caused me pain. And that's probably going to come with a lot of sloppiness and spillover effects if we really let this go forever. That's why ending like generational conflicts can be so difficult in a world, in our world, where you have the Northern Irish fighting the Catholics fighting the Protestants for generations and generations, and you have, the Montagues and the Amulets or whatever the fuck.
Capulets.
The Hamulets and the Amulets fighting each other. The Hutus and the Tutsis. But you have these vengeance cycles where one overreaction is met by another overreaction, and before you know it, you have children raised in societies or in contexts where they're stressed the whole time. Their cortisol levels are elevated their entire life, so they're used to bad. I mean, so you just have these human beings ending up in these. Yeah, James is showing me photos on his thing that he'll have to send me to that, and I'll put them in the video.
Oh, no, I wasn't intending that. I was just showing you that this is what I was just mentioning.
Yeah, beating up bloody Abby or Ellie. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a violent ass game, though, man.
Incredibly violent,
crazy violence,
and then just to get through the scene, what ends up happening is Lev convinces Abby not to kill Dina.
Yeah.
And Abby says to Ellie, "Don't ever let me see your face again." And she leaves, and leaves Dina and Ellie broken, bloody, and beaten on the ground, but still alive.
Yeah, so
maybe it's the second time that she let Ellie keep her life.
An opportunity to end the madness, the chaos.
Right. So what happens
and then
after...
she can go off and she can start an Etsy business.
Right. So what happened after this is you end up in a scene where it's a flash forward to the future, and Ellie is a tiny bit older, and she's on this like immaculate, beautiful, picturesque farm.
Yeah.
And she's in this farmhouse, and she's carrying the baby. So Dina had the baby.
Yeah.
And they're acting just like a regular, normal, happy married couple. Dina's in the kitchen making food, and Ellie's walking around and dancing around with the baby and playing music.
Dolores comes bouncing down the stairs with an easel and a painting.
Right, well,
she's off to the fields and say, "Doesn't look like anything to me."
Right, and that's what I assumed this was. I assumed that this was a dream. That Ellie was beaten and bloody and comatose on the ground, and this was her ideal future that she was seeing in her head, that she was manifesting. Yeah. And it seemed like that was what it was, because she started having hallucinations at one point where she was going to a door, and that door opened, and suddenly she was back in that hallway leading down to the stairs that led to the room that she went into where she found Joel being murdered. She could hear him screaming from the distance. So it's like, this is clearly in her head, but it wasn't. It was real.
Ow, my brain.
But she gets up in the middle of the night and she realizes that she cannot live with the memories of what happened. She can't let the vengeance go, even though she's lived this long and she has the life that she's always wanted. She still lets the vengeance get the best of her. And she gets ready to leave one night. Dina finds her and she says, "If you do this, we're done.
Yeah.
I can't go through this again. I can't sit here not knowing whether you're alive or dead.
But I gotta burn down that Hot Topic.
Yeah.
I have to.
And one thing I have
Sell me bracelets that left a stain? Go ahead.
And one thing I haven't mentioned throughout the game is that there's this really, really, really good mini game where you play a guitar, because that was kind of Joel's thing. Joel taught Ellie how to play a guitar, and Joel even came up, and the song that he taught her to play first was a very emotional song that I don't know if it was a real song or if he wrote it or whatnot.
Escalator to Heaven?
No, but he plays it for her.
Sorry, James.
And it's this really somber song about, I don't know what I would do if ever I were to lose you.
Okay.
And he sings that to Ellie. And she practices that, and she carries Joel's spirit around with her in that guitar.
Yeah.
Because every time she plays that guitar, she's connecting with Joel.
I feel the same way about my Prius fob.
Yeah. And one thing I should mention too, I was about to say a while ago, but I skipped over it.
That's fine.
Is that there was a flashback with Joel and Ellie where Joel takes her surprises her with a trip to a museum for her birthday. And it is one of the most beautiful, amazing experiences in any game I've played in years.
Okay.
It is the game that we were all hoping for.
I see. So you got like a little taste of that.
Right. It shows what this game could have been had this game not been turned into a shallow, blood brawl, revenge, stupid, good versus bad story.
Right.
Which makes the pain all the more horrible. That's where we were left. But anyway, she's on the farm. She can't live with the horrors and the memories of leaving unfinished business. Yeah. And she has to go off on a vengeance trip against Abby. Tommy comes by, and Tommy, again, he's limping around because he survived the shot to the back where Abby shot him. And he's furious at Ellie because he's like, I've been looking at some leads, and it turns out that there's a woman built like a Mack truck who's on a boat down this way, and she's traveling with this little boy who's got scars on his face. It's got to be them. She's down in Santa Barbara. You got to go after her. You got to kill her. You got to do this.
Is that in Tommy's character to be like encouraging her to give up her
not at all.
Her halcyonic farm life?
Not in my view. That's not the Tommy I remembered. Yeah. And Dina jumps all over him like, how dare you do this? What are you doing here? We're happy here. It's over.
But maybe Tommy was changed by the trauma.
Right, and then he yells, he yells at Ellie from the front yard as Dina's kicking him out. It's like, you promised me. I can't go. You promised me. He's limping because he's
disabled.
Yeah,
he got shot in the back. His brother got killed. He's been through a lot of bad. There's room for these characters to evolve into vengeance-crazed monsters. Yeah. Why not?
So
we're all going to be vengeance-crazed monsters before too long.
Yeah. So to finally make a long story short, you do go back and play as Abby. You find out you find a radio, you repair the radio in some sense, not really repair the radio, but you get it working.
You rub it with bandages.
Yes, you find out where the fireflies are, that they do still exist, and then you start going down a path to get to the fireflies. But as you do that...
As Abby, you're saying?
Yes, as Abby.
Okay.
Abby and Lev. And as you do that, you get blindsided by this other group in this other part of the U.S. called the Rattlers. They knock you out and take you captive, and then you switch back to Ellie. So now Ellie is looking for the Rattlers because Ellie is looking for the Rattlers because the Rattlers have Abby. She wants to kill Abby, so now she's fighting the Rattlers to infiltrate their compound to get to Abby to kill Abby. So
okay, and that's the Santa Barbara branch.
So you finally get to the jail cells, and the people there's a lot of people being held captive.
Yeah. I think I saw you playing.
Yeah, and the people in the jail cells say, "Oh, Abby, you mean her? Yeah, she tried to escape, so she's down on the pylons or something." Mm-hmm. And you don't really know what the pylons are until you stumble down a beach. And at this point, you're like bloody and beaten up and everything. You're not
stabbed with this branch.
She was put upside down by being caught in a trap. Her leg was caught. She was swinging upside down, and the inertia of her going up swung her into a tree basically gouged her in the side.
Yeah,
so
and
she's in bad shape.
She went on Twitter and just dialed up the anxiety attack that you get whenever you go on Twitter.
So you're bleeding out of your gut. You're stumbling, bloody, broken, exhausted down to the beach. And you see the pylons are basically these like giant wooden poles that they have a bunch of people tied to. Yeah. And I didn't even recognize her at the time because they cut her hair and all that kind of stuff. But Abby is on one of those poles, and you cut her down, and she is emaciated. Right. Just her muscles are gone. Yeah. Her hair is ragged and cut. Her skin and her face are just peeling off from severe sunburn from being tied to this thing out in the middle of the ocean or in the shore.
She had Panda Express, so she's got diarrhea.
Yeah, she is in bad shape. Mm-hmm. And all she says when Abby cuts her down, she goes, "Oh, it's you." So Ellie cuts her down. She gets down. She completely ignores Ellie. She cuts Lev down and starts putting Lev into a boat to get away. And Abby and Ellie is about to put her equipment into another boat to leave with them. And then she suddenly has a flashback of Joel's bloated, bloody face on the ground. And it re-sparks that anger in her. And she turns around and says, "I can't let you leave."
I can't let you leave.
And then Abby says, "I'm not doing this.
I'm not doing this."
And she grabs Abby by the head, by the hair, yanks her down into the water. And she can do that at this point because Abby is not the Hulk that she used to be. Right. Abby is severely physically compromised. So you have this brutal, bloody brawl between these two bloody, broken, on the verge of death people, where Ellie is trading blows and Abby can barely swing, but you're playing as Ellie at this point. Yeah. And if you time all your stuff right, you get down to the point where you're holding Abby's head underwater and you're covering her mouth so she can't breathe. And in doing that, Abby bites off 3 of your fingers.
Oh yeah, that's right. We had that bit, yeah.
But even in spite of that, Ellie's rage is so bad that she keeps holding her underwater until her legs almost stop kicking. But right seconds away from Abby's death, Ellie has another flashback of Joel. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that this is not what Joel would have wanted. And in that moment, she jumps off. Abby comes out of the water, hacking and coughing. And Ellie is just alone by herself in the water, cradling her hand, crying, and saying, "Go, just go, take him and go." And Abby is left to motor off into the sunset.
Into the mists of the sea.
And the last thing that you see is Ellie returning back to the farmhouse, and it's empty. Dina's gone, the baby's gone, everything that she ever wanted.
And she can't even run her fingers through the wheat like Russell Crowe does.
And then she goes upstairs and sits in her empty room with a guitar and starts trying to play the guitar and realizes she can't because she's missing the 3 fingers. So the last thing you see, aside from the flashback we talked about between her and Joel, is the guitar propped up against the window, and from outside the window in the distance, you see this blurry image of her walking off into the sunset.
Right.
She left the guitar behind. She left her memory of Joel behind. And in the first game, she had an emotional talk with Joel where she revealed that the one thing in life she's most terrified of is being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And her quest for vengeance made her throw away everything that was important to her, everything that she had worked for, and she ended up being the broken, alone person that she was always afraid of being.
Right. Can't even play music. Yep. Like the opposite of Westworld.
Yeah.
You just become music. It's like, no, you can't play music now. That's great sophisticated analysis there, Hank. You fuckface. Yeah. Okay. So what do you make of all that? Ellie doesn't deserve such a horrible ending.
No.
I mean, she's still off on another adventure. Maybe in Last of Us 3, she'll get some prosthetic fingers and start a rock band.
And you could have killed Joel in any number of ways.
Right.
But
so Joel
nothing would have been as awful and as a great injustice to the character as what they chose to do.
What if they had killed Joel and just sort of he trips and falls and smacks his head on the corner of a cabinet, like just the way the arbitrariness of sometimes freak accidents can sometimes take down even the mightiest amongst us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Like, or they could have come up with a more plot relevant type of way for him to die.
Yeah, let him go. Everybody was hoping that his exit would be done in a way that would be protecting Ellie one last time.
Yeah. Or
showing Ellie how much he cared one last time. Or anything but what we got. And I forgot to mention this before, but the first time that you're introduced to Abby in terms of playing as her as a character outside of that opening scene, she's laying back in bed reading a book. And who wrote the book that she's reading?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about this. What's the book?
Like City of Thieves or something like that. It was called something like that.
Right.
But it was written by...
D.B. Benioff. David
Benioff.
David Benioff. Yeah. So one of the Game of Thrones guys.
Yep. He is one of the D's in the D&D that ruined Game of Thrones. And we know Last of Us is going to have its own HBO miniseries. And we know that Benioff is connected at the hip with HBO.
Well, hang on, though. I think there's some good news there. Craig Mazin, who is the writer, actual former roommate of Ted Cruz, the Texas senator and creep galore from the United States Senate. Craig Mazin was the head guy writer. I don't know if he was the showrunner or not, but of Chernobyl, and he's also done a lot of other stuff. And he's one of the co-hosts of the very good podcast Script Notes with John August. For those that are looking to write scripts for Hollywood. I haven't listened to it in a few years, but it's a very good show. Anyway, Craig Mazin is a very capable guy, and a very smart dude. So hopefully it's not he's calling the shots more than the other guys are, because he did a great job with Chernobyl. I think more or less,
I love Chernobyl.
Universally, it seems like people have had very little to criticize Chernobyl for. I'm sure you can always.
But just imagine how infuriating it is for fans of this game, and there's a lot of crossover between Game of Thrones fans and Last of Us fans, because they're pretty much the same pool of people who love a great, emotional, compelling story.
Yeah.
And you have Game of Thrones completely annihilated by these two rodeo clowns, D&D.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point in the game, by the time you see this book in her hands, you already know the story is garbage.
Right.
And you know that it's very little chance for redemption. And then you see that, and it's like, oh my God, just add salt to the wound.
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, it's funny that they put each other's books. And you know that happens all the time. And I'm not even saying it's bad, but if I were making a game of the scope and scale of Last of Us, there's huge worlds with lots of detail. How could you not put the photos on the desks and the offices in any game, not just this game, but those are developers, buddies, and developers'
all
friends
over the place,
and their families, and that's probably very normal. But it is funny that the guy put the Game of Thrones guys as almost like a totem to ruining a beloved series, sort of thing.
It's like, hey, they did the same thing I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So we're two peas in a pod.
Right. Yeah. There's some kind of meta layer there.
Yeah. The only way Joel's death could have been worse is if Arya had jumped out of nowhere and stabbed him in the back.
And he turns into glass fragments or ice particles or whatever. Yeah.
And then the ice fragments spell out Joel was bad.
Joel was bad. Yeah. I don't know. I think the concept is workable. I think the execution didn't do a good job. So how would you rate the game?
Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot.
All right.
So, and I mentioned this a couple times before, but you cannot find a more immersive, beautiful, graphical world in any other game.
Stardew Valley, bitch.
Oh my god, yes. So major points for that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I hated Abby, I ended up liking Abby at the end, but then I realized the reason that they made me like her upset me.
Well, could you
but
just
even
understand? You understood her more. Is that
right,
maybe more fair.
But it was via a gimmick that robbed me of the choice of judging her correctly in the beginning, to force me to hate her, then to pull the rug out from under my feet, and then to give me the portion of the story that they robbed me of in the beginning to force me to try and like her after intentionally forcing me to hate her.
Yeah.
That is cheap and manipulative, and I hate it.
Like, had they put Abby in the first game as maybe like a childhood friend of Ellie or something, mm-hmm. or somehow introduced her along the way and then it would have been like, these are just both tragic characters whose fates were intertwined by this terrible dystopia. Yeah. This system of pain that is the collapse of a society because of the fungus heads. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. So great technical, beautiful immersion. Despite
the fact that I don't like the character of Abby a whole lot, after reflecting past after the end, I do think that she was portrayed and acted incredibly well. The voice actor that did that was top notch, and I have no ill will towards her. I mean, it's a character, it's not a person.
Yeah.
Joel, of course, was fantastic. Ellie,
ow, my cerebellum.
Yeah, I mean, for the limited time that we have with Joel, he was just masterful as always.
Uh-huh.
Ellie, I thought, was a bit flat in the sense they didn't let her be Ellie. Ellie wasn't really Ellie for this game.
Yeah. Well,
but she did a good job with what was given to her.
Yeah, they had to make her into a cold-blooded killer because of the cold-blooded life she's led.
So in terms of graphics and sound and gameplay, pretty much a 10 out of 10 thing.
Okay.
The thing about the gameplay, though, that I didn't like so much is that all they really added to it was the ability to go full prone and to bunny hop.
Full prone means like lay on your belly?
Yeah, and crawl through the grass, and to kind of hit a button to jump as you're running. That's the only thing they added. The crafting system, the aiming system, the movement system, the stealth system, the weapon selection system, all of that is a direct copy and paste from the first game. I was expecting a little bit of innovation from that point. 7 years later, everything exactly the same. The listening, the leveling up, the way you level, it's all exactly the same. Okay. So I was a little disappointed by that, but it wasn't like...
It was already pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't need to reinvent the wheel, but it would have been nice to see a little extra something, a nuance here, or a new thing there, but they didn't really do that.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I would say it's fairly adequate. But you cannot overlook just how important story is and how critical that is to experiencing a game. So when I first started playing the game, before they started trying to backfill and fill in the reasoning behind the decisions, I was confident this was a solid 3 out of 10.
All right.
And by the end of it, when I started looking back on everything they did and I started seeing things in the big picture and realizing just how much fun I had with the environment, with the atmosphere, with all those other elements that weren't connected to the shoddy storytelling, I realized that the game was better than I was giving it credit for.
Okay.
So I think that putting aside the story, and I think all the other elements lift it up to at least a 6 out of 10.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go a little higher than that. Wow. All right, 6 out of 10. That's what the TLDR of the entire discussion we just had. 2 hours and 12 minutes, or whatever it is. I can't really see it. 17. Yeah. Well, okay. So if the story had been better, it could have been maybe been a 9 or 10. Like the story really dropped. Is the primary reason why it's a 6.
If it had been what it was advertised to be, if they had structured the story in a way that wasn't gimmicky by using time jumps and flashbacks, and if they hadn't forced us to hate a character and then forced us to play as that character, and if they hadn't done Joel such a grave injustice of taking such a wonderful character and treating him in that way, then it could have been immensely better.
Yeah. I hope in the next one you get to play as the dog.
I honestly hope there isn't a next one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would choose to prefer to believe that the first game was the only game. Because you can't... nothing a sequel does will detract from the greatness of what came before.
That's how I feel about Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. But you don't regret playing it. I mean, you had given up on it at first, right? You were like, oh no.
I was. The only reason I went back and started playing it again is because I eventually wanted to do what we're doing now, and I knew that it would be unfair of me to judge a game without giving it the benefit of a full playthrough.
Oh, okay.
Which is what a lot of people on Metacritic were doing when they were just bombing it with ones. They played up to the point where Joel got killed, and they were like, screw this, I'm done, 1 out of 10.
Yeah, you should have to at least show how far you got.
Right, and the reason that I can say that without saying that I'm just speculating is that these 1 out of 10 bombs started rolling in less than 24 hours after the game came out. It takes more than 24 hours to beat that game.
Those are just temper tantrums, basically.
Yeah.
All right, well.
But if you play the game to the end, there are valid reasons to be upset about that. They just didn't know that yet.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like it could be like Last of Them. Like, just make it a game, make it a separate world, and then change it up, though, too.
And that's what I was thinking the whole time. Is like, the kind of story that these two characters deserve is a AAA blockbuster, amazing, blow your hair back story. Mm-hmm. If you want to tell a story that's simple, that's about revenge being bad, that's fine. But do it in a different game. Don't take these two characters that are so endeared and so beloved and say, we're going to waste them on this crappy one-dimensional revenge plot.
Right.
It is just a travesty.
It's a travesty. Huh. All right. Well, that's unfortunate. It was disappointing. I'm glad you played it all the way through, though. It sounds like enough of a... It wasn't so much of a whiff that it's just not worth talking about. There's still plenty of interesting things to get into.
Yeah, it's just...
We're fans of the craft and the art and the genre of storytelling in general. Movies, games, shows. I am trying to read more because I'm trying to get away from screens, even though all I do is stare at screens and fucking doing animations and video editing. But yeah, it's worth... I hope people, maybe after hearing this talk or whatever we just recorded, this podcast, I guess you call it, can... appreciate some of the nuance. I think that the fan base that our channel gets, even though we aren't as consistent as we were at one time, it's cool. I've always really respected the people that listen and comment, and so like I think that I one thing I was always, I don't know why I'm saying this, it's not really relevant to this game itself, but I always felt kind of proud that the people that became like regular listeners who comment seemed like really good, genuine folks. That meant a lot to me, and I hope that we reflected that spirit as well in the way we look at this game too. So thanks for being listeners and viewers, guys. I'm not saying goodbye quite, but are there any other or anything else you wanted to say? Because I do have kind of a question overall about games this year.
That's all I have to say about Bionic Commando.
That was he killed Bionic Commando's uncle. His uncle taught him how to swing from platforms. Anyway, any games that you're super excited about coming up? Because this was one of those, like, can't wait for it. Yeah. Oh my God, it's finally here. And then, like, what's the next big disappointment?
Honestly, since I played this game and since I was let down so badly, I have not even had the heart to look at what's coming out, to see what's on the horizon. I guess the main thing I'm kind of excited for is seeing what the PlayStation 5 can do.
Oh yeah,
and
what's the big thing with it? The Unreal Engine is improved, or something?
Well, Unreal Engine 5 has been announced, and I think it's in developers' hands now. I could be wrong about that, but it looks incredibly impressive. But that doesn't mean that everything on the PlayStation 5 is going to be using it right off the bat. I hope so, but doesn't necessarily mean that.
Yeah, there's a lagging.
I'm excited for that in the context of PC games too. I mean, a new engine means new abilities across the board. Mm-hmm. With the PlayStation 5, the one thing that I'm excited about is. Like, I used to play Destiny a lot. And I have a good friend in Destiny that I would love to go back and play with more. He's a great guy, and I've lost touch with him because it just... Playing on a console, which is what he's on as well, the PlayStation 4, it is just... I had this playing at 30 frames per second and with a controller just drives me insane. I use a mouse and keyboard adapter to get past the controller problem, but the 30 frames per second and the lag, and when I plug it into my ultra wide monitor, it just has giant black bars on both sides, because the PlayStation cannot run at 60 frames per second at 1080p in ultra wide, or even in, you know, and
25, 60 by 40.
Yeah.
No, that's 60. 34,
3440 by 1440 is what I run natively on that monitor. But the problem is that it just doesn't feel fluid. It doesn't feel natural, and I much would prefer 1080p in a normal widescreen 16:9 aspect ratio at 60 frames per second. So 60 frames per second, 1080p. Normal aspect ratio. I'd be fine with that. But up until now, and I bought a PlayStation Pro because I wanted that freaking 60 frames per second. And it turns out the PlayStation Pro very rarely does that. What they do is they say, well, we know what the players really want. Here are your options. You can play at 30 frames per second at 1080p or 30 frames per second at 4K. I don't give a crap about 4K.
What?
1080p is enough. It is fine. Frame rate is so much more important than resolution. Vastly more important.
Oh, you've gone too far. Yeah,
frame rate is everything.
I agree. Totally. On my cat channel, I make 4K animations at 60 frames per second.
Nice.
Every day is cat day, guys. If you're listening this far, Google it. Look, every day is cat day. Videos to entertain cats and the people who love them.
Oh, one other thing before I forget.
That's not a joke. Look at... Yeah, it's a fish.
The first time you play is Abby. Her name is Abigail, goes by Abby. Do you know what her father calls her?
Dear Abby.
Yeah. What do you think a good nickname? A good nickname for Abby would be?
Fabulous Abulous.
So the first time you meet her father in the flashback.
If my daughter was named Abby, I'd call her Abacus, and I would force her to be a math genius.
Yeah. So you fade in, and you have this probably maybe 13-year-old girl sitting in front of you. And she is yoked.
Cain and Abel.
Well, yeah. So she's way more yoked than you would ever expect to see a young girl like that, unless she's like a star gymnast or something.
Sure.
And then the father calls and goes, "Hey, Abs, get over here." It's like, come on.
Yeah, that's a little on the nose.
Hey, Biceps, get over here.
My dad calls me Flabs.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm flappy.
That would actually be pretty funny.
I'm a flappy boy. No, actually, I'm working on doing a pull-up. My goal this year is to do a pull-up. I am going to lift my huge frame and fat fucking butt up and do. And I started at about 1%, where you can just barely twitch your shoulders, and it feels like you're stretching your ligaments into a drawn and quartered horse Mel Gibson situation. But now I'm up to about, I can get up about 25%. Man, I can lift it up. I'm doing it. I talked to a guy who owns a gym, and he's like, do these other things. And I was like, oh, good idea. So I found him. This is a totally unnecessary story. I'm looking forward to the video game coming up. It's just about me, Cyberhunk 2077.
No, I've heard good things about it.
Cyberhank.
Yeah,
really.
People seem to... I think some people have played like the first hour or so in a demo.
It's CD Projekt Red, right?
Yeah, which is The Witcher. Yeah.
So they have a pedigree. Is that the right term?
Yeah, pedigree.
Right? Yeah. They have a pedigree. Is that right? Anyway, yeah, they have good reason to expect them to make a good game. Gwent was a really fun standalone part of the card game there. But I don't know. I like that world. As I've said before on here, I have a lot of optimism for sci-fi. I just always want them to be good. I'm used to being disappointed, but that to me just reinforces my belief that nailing it is harder than missing it, which is true about everything. It's always harder to hit it exactly the way people want, and even then, there's always going to be some nitpicky disappointments you could choose to focus on. So, like with this one, that's the game that I'm kind of looking forward to checking out.
But if anyone
is otherwise, I'll just keep playing Rocket League.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, like every episode of Westworld Season 3, I just don't care for futuristic city settings and cyberpunk stuff. So
yeah, I get that.
So maybe this game will turn me around. I don't know. Well, I'm going to buy it and try it because it has such high accolades, and I love The Witcher and what that studio does. So I'm going to buy it and give it a chance.
Or you could see other reviews come out. You don't have to necessarily be one of the first people to jump off the cliff.
My thought process with that goes the same as with my thought process of Last of Us 2. I loved the first game so much that they deserve my blind trust.
Yeah.
So
I mean because of Witcher was?
Yeah, there's only 2 developers I would ever do that for. One was Naughty Dog, which is not going to happen the next time they release a game.
Yep.
They've squandered that.
More like Naughty Dog.
Yes.
Get it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the next one would be CD Projekt Red, because The Witcher 3 was one of the greatest, like I would say, a love letter to gamers, because their DLC alone, which didn't cost, I think it was like $15 or something.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Was more content and more quality content than most full-fledged AAA games are from start to finish.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a good game.
It was fantastic.
And it's based on like an IP of quality books, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was like a Polish thing or something. Yeah.
One of those Transylvania countries.
Yes.
That'll piss people off.
Yeah, that goes a little bit further than I might go.
Well, when you think about Transylvania, I'm always like, probably like north of Italy, like somewhere up by the Baltic Sea. You know, like it's not in Western Europe. Mm-hmm. It's not all the way in like far eastern Russia. It's somewhere in that Eurasia zone, the Transylvania countries. Yeah. I want to suck your blood. Let's start a cereal company and start making chocolate, and we kill people with the diabetes. Then we drink their blood and we get the sugar. That's me, Mario.
I was about to say, you started going from like Dracula into an Italian dude.
Exactly. And I will fix your plumbing.
Yes.
I will go down into your pipes and steal your coins. Yeah. So, all right. Well, very good. I'm so happy that you played through it. I know it was upsetting when you first started, and I was worried about you. I made a sacrifice to Jobu. I gave him a shot of rum and the liver of a sparrow, and it turned out to be an okay experience overall in general, I think. Good discussion. Thank you, James. What the fuck is that?
Apparently,
I'm not used. I don't know what the sound.
Have you uploaded it already?
I've never gotten a
people already texted me telling me I'm wrong.
Yes. Oh yeah. What do you guys think in the comments below? That's what you're supposed to say at a YouTube video. I've been working on other things, and so sorry, Fred, if I don't get real responsive in the comments, everybody.
Unlike Neil Druckmann, I can admit if I'm wrong.
Did he? Oh, so how's he handled some of the blowback? Other than the crazies that are freaking out because they're immature idiots.
That's the only criticism that he addressed, and this is the problem. And you know, I really don't want to get into this at all, but very, very briefly.
Go ahead. That's fine.
The problem is that the game has an enormous amount of worthy criticisms.
Right.
But the only thing that Neil Druckmann and other people are responding to are the people who seem to hate the game because there's a transgendered character in Lev, because they assumed Abby was transgendered, because most of the male characters are written in a way that dumbs them down, or they just get killed. Like when Jesse was killed, Jesse was an endearing character, but he literally was shot in the face, fell to the ground in front of Ellie, and nobody ever spoke a word about him again. It was like he's just gone.
Well, they're busy.
So people were saying that the game is what do you call misogyny when it's women against men?
A fucking good time.
Yeah.
Hey, ladies.
So they were
Prius 2012.
And you know, Dina's character is bi, Ellie is gay. There is scenes where you travel through an erotic gay bookstore.
Yeah.
There's rainbows painted on the pavement.
Right.
It is a bit heavy-handed in this progressive way, which I think is a good thing.
Sure.
I mean, but the only thing I will give them in terms of that level of criticism is that it is a little disproportionate, because most of the characters that you come across belong to part of like the LGBTQ community, and lesser characters don't, which again is not a problem. But if you're a person that already has some sort of preconceived emotional disturbance in dealing with that aspect of society, then this game is going to send you into a rage, which it did happen. People could not handle that.
Yeah.
I personally could not possibly care less. If your characters are compelling and they're interesting, they can be gay, bi, trans, straight.
Polka dot.
I don't give a crap.
Right.
If you can tell a good story, I don't care who your characters are. And if it's a good story and they happen to be more progressive characters, then all the much the better.
Right.
I mean, that is not a reason to talk down on a game.
Yeah, and I like when they actually reflect. I mean, I have very lefty politics, and I grew up in a conservative house too. You know, whatever. I mean, there's kind of a progression to my politics. I paid very close attention to politics since I was 14 years old. I knew how many branches of government there were, all 2 of them. That's a stupid joke. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, I worked in political media and political online news and stuff. But I like it when people acknowledge nuance, and in movies where they show like The Five Bloods, which is actually another interesting movie I found quite well done. I saw it twice. One of the characters is a MAGA guy, like a Republican dude, and he's black, which is also even less common, even though there are. Sure, that's okay. But I was glad that presence was in the movie. I mean, I thought there were some choices that Spike Lee made in putting that film together that were fine. You know what I mean? Like I'm confident in my politics. I'm confident I can defend them. I'm also very open-minded, and one thing I'm always cautious about is confidence. Even I just said I'm confident, but like I think people are far too quick to apply confidence to their feelings. Feelings matter. I care about your feelings. I don't like that fuck your feelings stuff, or logic doesn't have room for whatever that stupid saying is. Feelings are absolutely important, and they should be incorporated into assessment, but they shouldn't be a replacement for certainty. I think people...
You're talking about Ben Shapiro's famous saying, facts don't care about your feeling?
Yeah, that's right. That's just a way of saying that, like, I decide what the facts are, not you. And that's not... There's nuance, and there's also limited information to almost every situation. So I think that there's an epidemic of confidence in terms of how... But I think that itself comes from... This is totally... I was trying to end it like 4 minutes ago. That itself comes from a world where it's difficult to arrive at the actual truths of how things are or why they are the way they are. You can only make the best guess you can based on the information you have, your ability to have critical thinking, and your familiarity and comfort levels with nuance and unknown. I've always been... It's one reason I kind of like logicked, quote unquote, my way out of any religious upbringing that I had. I didn't have a particularly religious one, although I had some Christian Science exposure, if you really want to get into the fucking weeds of insanity. But generally just standard Midwestern waspy white people Christian shit. And but like I don't need to have answers. You don't need to have answers to everything. That's a kind of intuitive comfort I have with the unknown, with being okay with what's not completely certain or known. Because I think a lot of conspiracy thinking, tribalistic thinking, the ways that people make assumptions about the other side, and I definitely fall prey to this cognitive bias myself, but that people are too quick to decide that something is absolutely the way it is because we're desperate for a narrative of an optimistic story this whole world can tell itself, because we're headed down a really scary direction with rampant capitalism and rampant global warming, which is going to cause all kinds, because we're not improving the world quick enough to deal with global warming. Okay, I'm starting to get back into my fucking politics. But
the point I was trying to get to didn't quite connect with global warming.
No, I'm just saying that like it's a very tense time and there's a lot of uncertainty, especially for the sensitive, and I'm above average sensitivities, I think. And to me, that's sort of one of the nutrients that makes people cling to knee-jerk confidence.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it. Where I was
a little doubt can be healthy for not just patience with your own thinking, but patience with why other people are so confusing to you if you disagree with them politically. Because so that was a tiny slice of my show, guys. Look into the description if you want to hear what it's like. Listen to me. I do it by myself mostly. Although I have some fun interviews planned, and it's going to be fun.
So the problem that I was getting into is the fact that the game has those elements to it.
Yeah.
Is not a bad thing whatsoever.
No, I agree. Yeah.
But the fact that so many people use that element or those elements to cry foul against the game was the greatest gift they could have given to Neil Druckmann.
Right.
Because when he responds to criticism of the game, all he has to do is say, well, I didn't make my game for homophobes and transphobes.
Right.
So he takes all of our opinions the legitimate and the illegitimate ones, bundles them together, and labels us all as transphobes if we don't like the game.
Yeah.
And I think that is despicable. And
Has he said stuff specifically
Yes.
like that? Yeah. Not just addressing those.
Right. So he's basically, what he's saying is that if I make a game or tell a story that includes someone in the LGBTQ plus community,
right,
and you don't like it for any reason whatsoever, you're a homophobe. You're a transphobe. You're a bigot.
Yeah, the generalizing everybody who's a critic into those labels is not fair.
Yeah, it does nothing for the narrative.
But I could make the case that it is a more important thing for the creator to address than the mistakes of the things, just because there are actual material consequences to those ideas being less squashed than they should be. Meaning, people get hurt. People can get hurt. And I'm not saying Neil Druckmann's responsible for that, and I'm not trying to say you're saying anything incorrect. I'm just pointing out the reality is that me criticizing some guy who made a show I didn't like because I didn't like the plot development, that doesn't get anybody hurt. Or it contributes a lot less, perhaps, than the maintaining the animosity and the sort of green light that the bigots and the homophobes are exercising these days. It's kind of scary. And it might be, hopefully, it's part of the death of this thinking. Because I think that is kind of what's happening, hopefully, in the world in an optimistic sense, that the change to a society where we allow people who didn't used to have power and didn't used to have a voice, where we permit them to have a voice, even just saying it in that term, we permit them. Well, they're tired of waiting. It's not up to us. It shouldn't be up to us. Everybody deserves dignity and respect, no matter who they are. Because I really believe that it sucks to be alive, no matter what. We're all just sort of stuck on this planet with these human minds and these human hearts and these human bodies that are gonna die, and that in the best scenario, you and your family all die. Yeah. We could get past this bullshit. Easy for me to say, since I don't have to live the oppression that comes with it, because I'm a tall white man. Is it tall? Tall gives me, boy, I'm so glad I'm tall, man. 6'3", a little under, drives me crazy, but not too tall for a Prius. Anyway, I'm just rambling, but it's good that things are changing in that sense, even if it makes you uncomfortable. And also, I think people that wear nose rings look like they have metal boogers. So
you would say that it's a positive thing that people are allowed to express themselves and say what they feel and say what they think without the fear of being shouted down.
Wait.
Because what I'm getting at here is that another thing I didn't mention is that Naughty Dog sent review copies of the game to developers, but allegedly, and I need to fact check this again, but I've heard it from so many legitimate sources that I believe it to be true, threatened to blacklist anyone who wrote a negative review about the game after having played it.
That's to me, that sounds like manipulation of your audience, because you have there's power. There's a power dynamic between reviewers and creators, right?
And they have copyright-stricken channels that have put up negative reviews of the game. Negative reviews that say completely legitimate things, has nothing to do with the politics side of what they claim is the case. I would say at this point in time, the vast majority of the negative criticisms of the game come from people who simply did not like the way the story was structured.
Right.
Had nothing whatsoever to do with the gender or identity or anything of anybody. And to constantly have all these people jumping up on their soapbox and pointing down people who haven't even played the game, who never played the first game, who never played the second, who are not even gamers, who don't understand anything about the relationship between the characters and how important the story is, getting up on their soapbox and pointing down and saying, "You're all transphobes, you're all bigots."
Right.
And that is a serious problem.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's part of the muddiness of these things, and you can also kind of look at the incentives that make them prefer to simplify their responses. I mean, but I'm saying that to me that falls upon those people in that company, Druckmann and Druckmann's PR team, but also it speaks to the way that we have conditioned society at large to be very knee-jerk. This is sort of that impulsive confidence that I find distasteful. Very knee-jerk in labeling someone else something and then refusing to budge from behind those labels.
Right. I think labeling someone like that because of their opinion of a game, having not played the game themselves, is more telling than anything, because that tells me that a person that would say that would look at that game and look at those characters, and all they see is transgendered, gay, bi. Whereas someone who legitimately plays the game and tries to enjoy it and identify and deal with the characters looks at those characters and they see Joel, Ellie, Abby, Lev.
Yeah.
They don't see them for their gender or for their sexuality. They see them as characters that you're supposed to care about, that you're desperately trying to care about. And if you want to take not you, but if these people want to look down and say, well, you clearly only dislike the game because of that, then that's a self-reflective statement that when they look at the game, that's all they see. And to me, that's a bit bigotry, or whatever the word is. That's a bit bigoted.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I know what you're saying. I know.
I just wish people would keep their mouths closed until they understand what the heck is going on.
Well, if you're prone, I don't identify, listen, obviously I'm a white guy, but I've never been yay, I'm white. I never understood that.
Those are my first words.
Yay, I don't get that. Okay, this is if you can't understand that the color of your skin makes a difference in the way the societal, especially if you understand the origins of American culture and history and the ways that we have failed to reconcile these issues. And it's important that it's finally somewhat happening, but it's not going to happen quick enough. And it never has happened quick enough, but it is possible to change on purpose. Meaning we can actually try, as opposed to just sitting around and waiting, because I think people are tired of waiting for the slowness. They want to bend this arc of justice a little quicker than it's actually bending. And along with that, though, you have to make room for it to be a very sloppy process. Sloppy Barry Jones, or what was the name we said earlier? Something Bob Jones. Yeah, man. Speaking of that, I haven't done any Owen lately. You know what I'm saying? Jesus God.
Owen, Abby's boyfriend.
Owen. That's his. I've turned it into a verb for Owen. My O face. Yeah. But completely inappropriate orgasm aside. But I'm saying, the whole. I see what you're doing, and I know exactly what you're doing wrong, and I can say it immediately with complete conviction that you are. That sort of, again, this is that reflexive confidence that's kind of poisonous, that just makes it so that this is inherently an imprecise process. There is no playbook. You're dealing with so many different stakeholders, if we could use a business school term, that are now asserting their voices in ways that aren't always going to make you comfortable. That's okay if they're not going to do it right. You also and I think the one thing that has happened in this society in general is people have been atomized into thinking that everything is about individual choices, and it sort of prevents you from looking at the systemic influences to why people's consciousnesses are sort of like an aquarium reef where there's different schools of fish, and you kind of just swim around with whatever you've decided. You're this label, you're decided there are a few of these labels, and so when indications come from those others who are also that label, you're just kind of going to be manipulated in that direction as well. And it happens to me too. We're all subject to this kind of influence. I happen to come from the angle where I think we should work to make society healthy, safe, and secure, particularly for children. That's been a big thing I've been talking about lately, is this. We shouldn't have to overcome stressful childhoods. That's just the way it is the kind of thinking that means, we're not going to try to change. Well, we should try to fucking change that.
I think all kids should go through the Hunger Games before they're age 15.
Yeah.
That way to get stronger, more useful children.
Right. Yeah. We're going to need to have kids beating each other up in vengeance bloodlusts for the dystopian future that we're all facing. But so it's also, I think, this perspective, it's healthy to look at it as every single one of these is like a splatter on the floor of a Chinese buffet. I don't think this metaphor is going to help or anything, but it's messy. And I was going to say, what's lost often is the power dynamics The people in power are the ones that you should worry about. The people with money, the concentration of wealth, not someone who doesn't have political representation. They might have an online community that can be a lot, and that's what's driving a lot of this sort of freak out, in addition to the fact that all of our attention spans have been whittled away by all the fucking phones and screens and stream. I mean, I think there's a technological danger. I don't want to sound, what's there, Luddite, neophyte? I don't know what word I'm looking for. But
a neophyte is someone who's new to something,
or
who was uninformed, or
yeah, that's not the right word. But there's technology's in our future, and consciousness collectively is moving online because we can kind of experience. But I don't think our minds are really evolved for processing all that, because the companies that do the data, like the big data firms, Facebook, Twitter, all the kind of big social medias, as well as the other huge, like all the behind the scenes data gathering that happens. They're not motivated by your best interests. They're motivated by their best interests. And they have a lot of money, resources available to do testing and psychological research on how to keep people as busy and as addicted as possible. So for myself, I've been sucked into this. And just in my own personal case, I'm trying to pull back from using phones as much, I'm trying to deliberately be conscious of this. I don't think, I have impulses occasionally to like throw my phone in the garbage or just do something to get rid of it completely. And I knew of a guy who like got rid of his cell phone and just used like a regular flip phone for phone calls or something. So
one thing I've been
I don't know. I think let me just finish this. Yeah. I mean, not that I had this plan to talk about, I'm just rambling, but I do think there's going to be more and more, and I know it's already started, movement for people to like deliberately and intentionally pull back from the internet and pull back from using their phones so much. I think it's really messing us up.
Probably the best way to start would be to prevent, and I started trying to do this myself, because I realized that like if I'm watching a movie, half the time I'm staring at my phone.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm trying to put my phone on silent and put it face down on the table in front of me and focus just on what I'm watching.
Yeah.
And that's my first step in trying to improve in that manner.
Just to be aware of it. Yeah. And I've even noticed like when my phone, like when I'm playing Rocket League, but like when my phone is in my peripheral, if it's up, meaning like if something comes on an email and it turns on, that is so distracting. Even if it's down, if I put it face down because I don't want to see anything that comes up, I can tell my phone is there like a child who needs his safety blanket nearby. You know what I mean? Like I can feel the pull, like because I'm very hyper aware. I'm super hyper conscious or like hyper self conscious, and like so I will put my phone behind me, out of my peripheral, or you have a spot in your room. Not that there's one spot where it's but like I'll like under my on my printer, like it kind of hides under this little shelf, and. These are tiny, these are stupid, this is just like one person's interaction, but I would be stunned if there aren't people listening to this that would maybe understand some of this too. Similar weird feelings about it. And it's just contributing to our ability to focus on thinking and thoughts and critical thinking and being patient with other people. I don't know, I just think there's a lot, there's like I wish we could just do maps and phone calls.
I didn't get a smartphone until years and years and years after. Like everyone I knew had like an iPhone or something, and I had this Nokia brick. It could barely even text. In order to text, I had to hit 5 3 times to get to a certain letter or something like that. Because I didn't care.
T9 words or T9
I didn't care about any of that stuff, and I still kind of don't care.
Yeah.
The only thing I like having my phone for is like, if I need a flashlight, it's got it on there.
Yeah.
If I need a calculator, it's on there. If I need to find directions somewhere and I'm lost, boom, it's there.
They're amazing.
If I need to text someone, it's there. Aside from that, I don't really care about my phone.
Right.
If I want to watch like YouTube videos, I've got my iPad, which is just a big phone, or I've got my TV. But the phone itself, in terms of like what a phone can do, I don't care. I mean, iPad doesn't have a flashlight on it.
Right. Well, you can turn it to a white screen and just crank up the brightness.
Yeah,
exactly. And obviously everybody's different, and they're incredible. Like the phones are addictive, not just because the companies that use them to and you could even say, well, that's your fault. You should deal with it. And that's why you should take personal responsibility for doing that. But there's also billions and billions and billions of dollars on the line for these corporations that are able to buy the politicians that write the rules. I think eventually there'll be like a data bill of rights, meaning that you'll have right to delete the information you get, or maybe Facebook or whatever. I'm just saying an example. Will have to pay out a portion of what the money they make off of your data, or something like that. Hopefully, I think something along those lines has to happen. The politics in this country and globally, I would say, are nowhere near as nimble as the speed at which technology changes, though, and that's one of the problems too. So things are accelerating faster than the laws can keep up with them, even if they were the right people making the laws, which they're not. So anyway, all right. Well, wow, we really went.
If you want to get away from looking at your phone so often, I know the trick to it.
What?
Delete Facebook, delete Instagram, delete Twitter, because that's what drags people back to their phones constantly, trying to get a ding, a little bit of validation, a little bit of confidence boost. What's someone saying? Are they saying a good thing? Are they saying a bad thing? That will drive a person to be a slave to their phone.
It provokes compulsive behavior. I definitely experience it with me. Yeah. Twitter is particularly a little bit I haven't used Facebook in years, although Instagram's owned by Facebook. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Not surprising. I'm actually happy. I genuinely don't even know what Instagram is.
Keep it that way.
I just know that I see a bunch of people looking like fools, puckering up their lips and trying to take pictures in other places, and you always find, like, what is that pretentious jerk doing? Oh, he's an Instagram influencer, or she's an Instagram influencer.
I get 10 extra likes when I do my duck lips, so I always do that. But I've also I haven't done stand-up in a few years, but like I'm pursuing a career as a person in entertainment and comedy and doing podcasting, and I would like to be a writer and make videos and shit. So like, maybe I don't need it at all. I don't know. You know, it is a very much a ongoing thing that I'm kind of. Even just acknowledging it, I think, is a healthy first step. That's all I guess.
I mean, and people have succeeded in the past without this stuff. And I look at, Twitter to me is just 100 million voices all screaming out for attention.
It's the best named of them. Yeah, it is like a bunch of birds just in a forest. Like, you ever seen like documentaries about the jungle?
I mean, that's like, literally they're called tweets. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. And then when a lot of people go at one thing, it's like the birds, like when like a different bird flies by and they'll go, you know, or like a airplane drops like its load of blue frozen shit into the jungle. You know, do airplanes vacate above them?
Oh, you're talking about that? Okay, yeah. Well, I don't know.
I was gonna say when Dave Matthews does it, but you know
that was a tour bus.
Yeah, it was a tour bus on a bridge in Chicago. They dumped their shit onto
fucking hilarious
onto a boat below that, like a sightseeing boat. Crash into me, am I right? Oh god, that joke's been said a million times. Anyway, that's an interesting discussion. I think everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, smash that like button, hit the response button, do the thing. Make sure you get addicted to our content, because we might be able to sell some advertising against this fucking crap, and that way we can make a little bit of money. But let me just say this about that. I'm trying to be is facetious? I don't think facetious. Facetious.
What?
Facetious. Why can't I say that? I don't even think that's the right word, but I can't say the wrong word either.
Now I'm afraid to even try and say it.
Say it.
Facetious.
Facetious. What the hell was I gonna say? Oh, advertising is like gross, but also the world, at least the entertainment business, is built around attention, and it's built around, can you get eyeballs? It's no different than a book or meaning like the more people look at something, the more valuable it becomes. And that's true about YouTube videos. That's true about just about any kind of performative art. And I don't think that's ever really going to go away. Although the one good thing about the world, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling here, man. We both really got stuff to do, and our listeners do too. Thanks for listening to this. Though, is that thanks to stuff like Patreon or other revenue streams like merch and things that where people can connect with creators. And they can, if you can find a threshold of people to support the creative work that you do, you can sustain yourself off of that work, which is what my goal is. That's why I've been putting in 12, 14-hour days on my various projects. I don't think I'm doing a great job prioritizing, but I know that will manage my sanity, because I've had issues with that, much better if I don't have to work for somebody else, because it's really really fucking hard. Although if I should, because you need to make money. That's my way of saying thanks for listening, everybody. We hope that.
So we can start our shot by shot of Kroll.
Oh fuck! I didn't hit record. Yeah, our shot by shot of Kroll. But yeah, so I think there's positives here, but like everything, there's a narrow pathway to getting through the difficulties the world is facing. That we hopefully will get through that pathway, and we'll do it together.
James, and if you dislike this video, you're a ramble-phobe.
Come on, that's not. We get plenty of dislikes.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding.
No, no. Go ahead. I don't. Actually, did the dislikes contribute to the algorithm? When I worked at the Young Turks, I was a professional YouTube publisher, so I know some of this.
I always jump on to be the first one to click dislike.
Huh? Yeah.
That's my rule. I was like, first.
Well, it's just weird. It's just. All right. Goodbye, everybody. James, last of the good. Well done. Thank you for all the thoughtfulness you put into the game and to playing it, and
I might load it up again just to throw Ellie off a roof this time.
Well, and I don't know. Throw Joel. Maybe Joel can take up.
He doesn't live long enough for me to do that. If he did, I would.
Yeah. Well, now that you finished it, though, do you get did you unlock a bunch of skins where you can play as the Thundercats or something?
Oh my god!
Everybody gets to dress up like Toadstool, or
yeah, that would probably hurt the tone that they're going for.
Yeah, I would think.
Can you imagine having Ellie use a Joel skin, so Joel's alive, but he has Ellie's voice? That's the first thing modders usually do.
Yeah, they just switch the audio files or the skin,
not the skin
files.
Yeah, the skin files. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just the giraffe.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Good night. Goodbye. See you later. Thank you, James. Goodbye.